So good morning, everybody. Lovely to see you all. Our first area committee meeting of the new year. So thank you all for your attendance this morning and welcome to this meeting of the Black Isle and Easter Ross Area Committee. Please note this is a formal public Highland Council meeting and is being recorded and will be uploaded for public access via the Council's YouTube site. You are therefore reminded not to make specific references to individuals and to only disclose information which is in the public domain. I also remind members that the chat function is to be used only for placing motions and amendments. Members participating remotely should activate the hand function when wishing to speak, and this function will be monitored. Thank you. So good morning, everybody. It's lovely to see you all. Given that we're all here, Fiona, I'm assuming that's no apologies for your absence?
No apologies, Chair. And so just do a quick roll call. Councillor Atkin.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Coghill.
Present, thank you.
Councillor Collier.
Present, good morning.
Councillor Cross.
Good morning, yes, present.
Councillor Dundas.
Morning, present.
Councillor Edmondson.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor McCallum.
Present, thank you.
Councillor Ramsey.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Ross.
Present.
And Councillor Johnson, Chair, I know you're here. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And moving then on to item number 2, do we have any declarations of interest or transparency statements? Okay, I think that'll be a no then. So the next thing is we are going to move on to the police report, which is item number 3. And for that, sorry, I'm just clicking through here. I believe we've got Area Commander David McAlpine with us to give a quick overview of the report, and then we're going to bombard you with some questions.
Good morning, Chair, and morning, everyone. Nice to see you. Yeah, I am Chief Inspector David McAlpine. I'm the new area commander for the North Area Command for N Division. So here to present the report covering 1st of April 2025 until 31st of December 2025. I know the report has been shared with you prior to this meeting, and I'm not going to go through it verbatim, but just to make some points for you. Obviously, the report and the figures in the report cover the whole of the North Area Command, so that's everywhere from the Kesset Bridge right up to Caithness, John O'Groats. I will try and break down some of the figures into more regional area for the Black Isle, and the committee, Easter Ross committee itself, just to make it be a bit more better context for you. Just when we do go through the figures for the whole of the North Area Command, some of them obviously are still encompassing the COVID period, so the 5-year averages still encompass the COVID period, so that can have a wee skewing factor on the figures and that as well. So it's just to make you aware of that. So obviously my introduction on page 2, I'm not going to, as I said, go through it verbatim, but the local policing priorities are still there in terms of road safety and crime, acquisitive crime, serious organised crime, antisocial behaviour, violence and disorder, protecting vulnerable people, and terrorism and public order. Going on to page 4 of the report in terms of road safety and road crime, there's been a lot of proactive work done across the area this year by response officers and road policing officers, and that can be sort of seen in the figures. So for example, the drink driving offences year to date 25-26 for the command area is 189 compared to 178 for year period 24-25. Just to break that into local context for you, for your ward committee, the numbers are 89 for 25-26 year to date, compared to 68 for the period year to date 24-25. And with regards speeding offences for the command area 25-26 year to date period, it was 258 compared to 166 the year before. But breaking that down into your local specific area, it's 78 year to date for 25-26 period and 36 compared to last year's year to date 24-25 period. So there's been a good amount of proactive work getting done. Just to give you some other figures that aren't actually in the report, we've got certain offences that we class as the fatal 5. So they are the ones that contributed to fatal accidents, which you can see this year fatals are up by 3 for the period. We're up to 6, which is obviously something we don't like to see and is tragic. In relation to the locus for each of them, it's not one specific area. They are sort of spread out across the sort of North Command. We have had 3 fatal accidents on the A9, one near the Cromarty Bridge, one between Invergordon and Milton, and then one at Latherin, just in Caithness, which obviously is tragic and something that we're trying to work hard to try and decrease. But in terms of that, offences that can contribute to fatal: speeding, dangerous careless driving, mobile phone offences, drink driving, seat belts. The detections are up for that sort of classification of crimes, up 29% compared to last year. So there's a lot of work ongoing to try and make the road safer. Just another fact is that the serious injury RTCs are down by approximately 50% across the north. So it just means that the number of obviously serious injuries have gone down by quite a significant amount. So there's a lot of good work, proactive work ongoing for the roads to try and make them as safe as possible. Included in that, obviously, the road policing unit engage with learner, new driver and road user behaviour inputs. They do a lot with inputs with, they did input at the Eastgate Centre for more sort of elderly drivers and awareness, etc. and that as well. So a lot of engagement ongoing to try and just educate our road users as best as possible. Moving on to page 6 in terms of antisocial behaviour, disorder and violence. As you can see, there's been no murders this year, which is reassuring and good to see. Assaults are up for the North Command area. So year to date 25-26, they're sitting at 499 for the command area compared to last year 463. Just breaking that down into more specific context for you, it's 183 year to date for 25-26 for the Black Isle and Easter Ross ward, and last year that was 212. So we're actually down slightly on the number of reported or recorded assaults. Serious assaults as well. For the area, we're up by 2 for the command area to 25 year to date 25-26 compared to 23 for the year period 24-25. However, for Black Isle and Easter Ross, the number is 5 for 25-26, and last year it was 7. So we're down 2 serious assaults as well compared to last year, which again is a positive move forward. Drug possession offences have gone up for the area. So just breaking it down specifically for your ward, 25-26 year to date, we're at 108. And then last year, 24-25 period, we were at 85. But I will put that down to proactive work that's been ongoing. So the number of drug drivers has gone up. That'll come into part of that. Possession for drugs obviously increasing as well. When officers stop a car and there's drug driving involved, they'll search that individual as well. And if there's drugs found in the car or on the person, obviously that'll go down as a detected drug possession offence as well. So there's a lot of proactive work ongoing. In the report as well, we obviously mentioned the harm prevention officer who deals with vulnerable individuals to try and obviously support them, get them out of their addictions if they're in any addictions, and to obviously provide advice and that for their safety and to stop them becoming victims of crimes themselves. So there's a lot of work that goes on with third-party agencies and to try and improve the welfare of individuals across the whole area. Just moving on to acquisitive crime on page 7. For the North area, house break-ins are down, so 23 recorded for 25-26 year-to-date period compared to 25 last year, 24-25 period. Specifically, you are down 5 for the Black Isle and Easter Ross, so year-to-date 25-26 period is 10 compared to 15 last year, which again is another sort of positive indication. Fraud is up across the whole area. It's up, and it seems to be a crime that's increasing across the whole of the nation. There's some very good people via telephone fraud, social media frauds, and they're very convincing, and unfortunately people are believing that it's either their bank calling them or their bank getting in touch, and they're falling for the professional way that these individuals are behaving on the phone, and either transferring money or setting up new accounts, etc., and passing the details on to the person on the phone, believing that they're from their bank or another company. So work is ongoing with that, again, just to try and target hard and give people the advice to try and reduce that. But it is going up in the area, but also across the nation. There's been a steep rise in theft by shopliftings in the north. Year to date, 25-26, it was 202 compared to 140 for last year to date, 24-25. And breaking that down into the ward area, this year 25-26, year to date, but at 95 compared to 39 last year. Part of that is because of cost of living has had a big impact on our residents in the area. There has been some individuals, maybe a handful, who have been responsible for a large majority of them. They have been reported, and we're working closely with the courts and again harm prevention officers, etc., to provide that support to them to stop reoffending, but also when we do catch them offending, that we try and get measures put in place to prevent that from happening in the future and that as well. So we do work closely with the shops as well to try and provide prevention and intervention advice to make their premises more secure and hostile, if you want to use that word, for people committing theft by shoplifting. So that's work that continuously is ongoing throughout the year. Just moving on to protecting our vulnerable people. In terms of rape, for the year, it's down from last year for the whole of the North Area Command. 41 reported or recorded cases for 25-26 compared to 49 in 24-25. Again, breaking that down into your ward, that's 11 recorded for year to date 25-26 period, whereas last year 24-25 year to date it was 25. So you're down 14 reported rapes compared to last year. Domestic crime is up. Part of the reason for that is when we deal with domestic crime now, because of the measures that have been put in place over the years with Police Scotland and our third partner agencies who support victims of domestic abuse, we have a lot more crimes recorded throughout a relationship. So some of the crimes recorded will have happened non-recently, so last year or several years ago throughout that relationship. So every time that they mention a crime, we record it as one crime, and it'll be recorded under this year's statistics if they're reporting it this year. Hate crime is down, which is great to see for the area that hate crime is down. And the number of missing persons that we have had reported this year is down quite significantly for the north, which is good news. There's a lot of work ongoing with our missing person coordinator and obviously some of the care homes where some of these missing people come from, in relation to looking after the individuals, but also how they report to the police, which saves a lot of officer time because it's very intensive and time consuming when it comes to missing person inquiries. So that is good because it allows officers to be out doing the more proactive work and dealing with crime. Moving on, serious and organised crime. So drug supply offences have increased this year for the North. Year to date, we're at 31 compared to 28. For year ward, we're up at 18 compared to 14 last year. So again, I put that down to the proactive work that's ongoing. We have a team in Inverness that deal with sort of county lines and the sort of drug supply into the area that are obviously working hard and gathering intelligence to be able so we can do drug enforcement warrants, but also we do the proactive work through stop checks on vehicles, which can lead to drugs and a large amount of money being found in vehicles, and obviously intelligence being gathered, which then allows us to get more enforcement activity arranged. So county lines does affect the area. Obviously Inverness being the sort of main hub where they then branch out from, and it does affect all parts of the north. Obviously the higher north we go in terms of travelling, it is less prevalent because of the sort of geography and the distances involved. Just moving on, counter-terrorism obviously is always on the go. We work closely with social work, education, other third sector partners, and anyone that we do have any information on, we will engage with and obviously gather intelligence and work closely with persons to try and divert them or away from the activity they're engaged in as well. So there's a lot of work that ongoing with that as well. Obviously pages 11 to 13 are more specifically into the individual crimes and the figures are there, but I'm happy to take any questions following that whistle stop sort of tour of the report.
Thank you so much for all of that, David. That was a great rundown through all the stats there. So thank you very much for that. Before I hand over to other councillors, I have a couple of questions myself, if you don't mind. The first question I was going to ask was in terms, especially when it comes to the crimes reported around sexual offences, do you have information about, the ratio of male to females committing these crimes, or is that not something that's collected as part of these stats? My next question, just to give you, is more of a sort of just a commentary. I think it's really encouraging to see the number of care experienced young people going missing reducing, and I think, given that it's a year-on-year reduction, that's fantastic. But obviously I think when it comes to people going missing, is there still a sort of, the stats might be the number of instances, but not necessarily the number of individuals. So you could have the same individual going missing on more than one occasion. And the last one was sort of your take on fraud, especially amongst some of our older residents, when I think AI is becoming such a force with especially telephone frauds, where people are duped into thinking that it is a relative or a friend looking for help and appealing to our better natures through the use of AI. And, I think it can be quite frightening if you don't know what it possibly is that's contacting you. So would you prefer like 3 councillors at a time, or would you like to take questions and answers individually, David?
Wouldn't mind doing it individually, please.
Okay, no problem.
And if I just address your points there, Chair, if you don't mind, if that's okay.
That's wonderful, thank you.
In terms of sort of male to female ratio, I've got some figures. So in terms of recorded, or that we have got recorded so far, for domestic abuse of female, for year to date 25-26, I've got 9, whereas last year 24-25 it was 15. And then I've got, in terms of domestic abuse of male, I've got 1 for year to date 25-26, but I've got 0 reported for 24-25. So yes, it will be recorded, but I don't have full details available to myself, or I haven't got them presented to me. So, but that was just a brief of the ones that I do have, if that makes sense. Sorry.
Yeah.
In terms of the care for people, yes. So that numbers will potentially be one person that's gone repeatedly several times. So every time someone goes missing, it's recorded as a one reported case, but it could be that one person may have 10, 15. They may be responsible for that amount of figures. So again, by working closely with that individual and the missing person coordinator and trying to put support in place, we try and reduce that, which is obviously something that is always ongoing, and you can see from the figures that we have come down in numbers, and we will always try and get them as low as we can, and just work with that support to give that person the support that they need, and obviously address any issues that they have as well. With regard fraud, I specifically don't know myself how much AI will come into it. It's generally done via individuals phoning, and they just sound extremely professional. They may have some details that they've got off social media. For example, they might go onto Facebook and see that you live in a certain area or your name, and then they will use the information that you may put on social media as part of the questions they have for security checks or that they pretend to be in the bank. So they may know you've got an animal, or they may know that you've got a husband and 2 children and their names as well, because you've got them on social media. So these individuals are extremely good, and I hate to say, like, really professional at what they're doing, and they sound very convincing. And all we try and do is just to say, if you do get a phone call from your bank, hang up and just say, look, I'll get the number off the internet and I'll phone you back, and then just do it that way. The bank, any staff member will not be offended by that, and you're just doing sort of due diligence yourself. And if you are provided a phone number from them, don't phone that either. Find one off the internet or your paperwork that you have associated with your bank and that as well. So that's the advice we try and give. And any person who is older, again, we engage with them to try and give them safety advice and advice about how to protect themselves a wee bit better than that as well. So we do have that as well. So, but it's ongoing work.
Thank you so much. I'll pass over to Councillor Dundas now.
Hi, thanks, David. Just a quick question regarding the information packs on the drugs that the Scottish Government have done. Do they come down into our schools in our ASG area? Are the pupils receiving them?
In terms of what the pupils actually receive from the government, I couldn't honestly tell you, but I can say that obviously our prevention and interventions officers and police officers will go into schools, and we do part of the school talks, etc., about obviously drugs, etc. We have sort of found sometimes that an officer coming in and sort of going on about it or lecturing about drugs isn't always the best form of to pass that information to pupils, but we do have that engagement. But sorry, I can't be more specific about the packs that are handed out to schools.
That's fine. Thanks, David.
Okay, Councillor McCallum.
Thank you. I think Councillor Cockhill is ahead of me.
Oh, you're absolutely right. I do apologise. The hands went flying there so fast I didn't keep up. Councillor Cockhill.
Thanks, Lindsay. Yep, there's a lot of hands up. David, thank you very much for the report and for particularly for providing the local colour, if you like. It's really helpful. A couple of wee questions. I don't know if you'll be able to answer them. I was wondering, what's the kind of typical drug offence? Is there a typical drug offence or offences? And on the theft and shoplifting, you talked about targeting individuals that are maybe responsible for a number of them. I was just wondering what kind of time is there between arrest and then appearing in court? You know, we've heard that can be quite a long time. So I was just wondering if you've got any intelligence on that. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. So in terms of type and drug offences, obviously for drug driving, generally you're looking at sort of cocaine, cannabis, would be your sort of predominantly the main ones. And with the sort of saliva wipes that road traffic use, that's the 2 drugs that appear when they do that. Obviously, blood test is sent off for analysis, and other drugs may show up in that as well. But in terms of possession of drugs, variety of drugs in terms of cocaine, heroin, you will get some obviously ecstasy, but you also get sort of street Valium now, and you different sort of tablets now that are coming more prevalent as well. So gabapentins, pre-gabs, etc., that look like medication, but obviously they're legally produced in that as well. So there's no one specific drug that's sort of, I would say, taken over, but the usual drugs are cannabis, cocaine, heroin, etc., and that as well. So hopefully that can help you. In terms of theft by shopliftings, if we know there is a prolific offender, we will try and get them arrested and released on an undertaking. So generally, if they're released on an undertaking, they'll go to court within sort of 2 to 3 weeks. They'll get a specific court date that they have to attend, and then obviously they'll be dealt with there. If it's just maybe a single offence or a couple of offences, we generally just do it's called a citation report. So we'll submit a report for citation, and they'll just be obviously given a court date, or possibly they'll get contacted from the court themselves, and they might just plead or get given a fine, etc., rather than having to go to court in that as well. So, but generally, prolific offenders will try and get them arrested and released on an undertaking so they can get through the court system or start going through the court system a lot earlier, and then we can get conditions placed on them. So we might be able to get them barred from entering that shop. We might be able to, depending on the circumstances, get a curfew put in place. So it's just to try and restrict their movement and their activity in that as well.
That's really helpful. It's really reassuring that people are facing the consequences quite close to the offence. So that's a better chance of nipping it in the bud if we can do such a thing. That's really helpful, and thanks for the answers on worrying answers on all the range of drugs that you're coming up against. Okay, thanks.
So second time lucky, Councillor McCallum.
Thank you, Lindsay. There's a lot of really fantastic things in the report, especially the carriage experienced young people in terms of people going missing. But I just had a couple of questions in terms of the attempted rape and sexual assault that's gone up. I know you've done a huge amount of work in regards to this, and I was just looking for an update in terms of that. And I also noticed that the cruel and unnatural treatment of children has gone up quite significantly, which was quite worrying. So I was just looking to see if you had any insights into why that is, and if you could tell us a bit about what's been done to try and rectify it. But there's a lot of really fantastic things in that report, so I just wanted to thank you for the work that's gone into that as well at the same time. Thank you.
Yeah, so in terms of obviously rape, although the numbers have come down compared to last year, it's still a large amount, and not something we'd like to see. Probably to provide some reassurance, a large number of that sort of rapes that are recorded will be non-recent, so they may have happened previously within a relationship, or generally be classed non-recent as sort of over a week out with the sort of forensic opportunities available to us. So some of them could be one victim, but has reported a bit like when it comes to missing person, there could be a few of those rapes against that one person throughout the course of a relationship, if that makes any better context for you. Just I suppose sexual assaults that have, obviously just because we're under sort of sexual crime, sexual assaults are the same as last year to date, 26 for the area, which is still obviously not a nice number to have that high. But again, that can be reported through the course of a relationship and that as well. So as much as the numbers can look quite not staggering as such, but quite high, it could be taken out of context in terms of you might be thinking maybe it might be happening right now and recently and that as well, but it's not. But obviously for anyone involved, our third sector agencies are amazing at providing support for individuals who are victims of sexual crime. So we obviously have to thank them and continue to work with them, because the work they do is really truly amazing to provide that support for anyone. So and again, in terms of police, we will always be victim led. So we always go by the best sort of course for victims and how they wish to proceed in that as well. So we always take into account how they want to progress it as well. So with regard to child abuse, again, it's similar. We have probably more confidence in people reporting to the police. So again, we get people reporting child abuse or assaults from when they were younger, and you know, it could be it happened 5 years ago, 10 years ago. It could even be people who 40 years ago were abused, and they feel now is the time that they want to tell the police and that as well. There's no, I suppose, rhyme or reason why people wait so long. It's just when they feel ready to report it. And obviously, if it has happened a number of years ago, then we will record it under this year's figures, not the year it happened. Also, I think with, well, when I say recent legislation changes, but obviously several years ago, the smack and ban came into place and that as well. That and with the sort of the work we do with education and the close ties we have with social work and that, I think children are more comfortable as well reporting to either teachers or social workers, etc., anything that's going on at home as well. So I take that as a positive that the children feel they can do that now. And that can sometimes lead to just the higher figures coming in as well. But I think the way things are, we will always try and work with our partners and provide that care to children as well. But hopefully that answers questions. I think I slightly went a wee bit off topic there for you. But
no, not at all. Your insights were really helpful. Thank you for that.
Fantastic, thank you. Councillor Ross, your turn.
Yes, thanks very much, David. Good report, a lot of improvement, and there are some things that have gone up, like the shoplifting and such like. My question to you is, do you, as a force, go into the likes of youth clubs? You know, we've got the Highland Youth Clubs, and we've got also the Highland Youth. And I'm just wondering, do you have talks with them, especially on knives and county lines, that sort of thing? Because I know your resources will be pretty well stretched, the same as most other services. But prevention is always better than the cure. So that's one question. And the other one, although it's been covered, some of it's been covered by others, but I would just like to know, would you come along, or would one of your officers come along to a session where you would talk about fraud to the elderly people? Because we have a project in the Seaboard coming up, and I think that would make a nice pop-up station to give people a little insight, and I think they would feel more comfortable speaking with an officer rather than having something down the phone. So I'll leave it at that.
yeah, Councillor Ross, I will come back to you on the youth clubs. I'll speak to my area inspectors, and I will give an email about the sessions, and just if you give me dates and times and locations, I can see what I can arrange. Can't promise anything just now until I see the dates and that, but if it's something we can certainly help and provide a talk to, then we will. And obviously, like you say, I totally agree that prevention is better than reacting to something when it's already happened. So if I drop you an email and just ask you for any dates, and then we can maybe see if we can arrange something for you.
That's perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, Councillor Atkin, it's time to hear from you.
Thank you, and thank you very much for this report. I mean, it's quite a lot of really great insights. I just feel that drugs are just the scourge of so many of our communities, and obviously they pop up in each little section, because, you know, if you're drug driving or social behaviour, a lot of people in our communities feel that it's, and this is a resource issue, I think, as well, but I'd quite like, my question will be more about a threshold issue, that it's just kind of, they have to just put up with it. They have to put up with, yeah, people, the garden they can't put their kids into because it's wafting cannabis coming from the neighbouring house, or the people they can see coming back and forth buying and selling drugs. And what is the threshold for you? Because I know this is you can't just kind of just go in to and raid a house. What is the threshold? Because I feel that communities need to feel a little bit more empowered, and a lot of people are too scared to report. That's my first point. The second one, the second question is on the housebreaking detection rates of its progress. 30, it's kind of lower than the shoplifting. And is there support for victims? Because people might think it's not as serious a crime. Believe me, if you're burgled, it's a terrible violation for people. And I think a lot of work is done to obviously to help people doing this so they don't do it again. But again, I think a lot of people feel, oh, great, you're helping the criminal, you're not helping me. And that happens with sexual assault as well. There's a lot of work going on into perpetrators of female violence. And a lot of people speak to me and go, well, what about the victims? That kind of argument in society. And on the Councillor McCullum's point about the children, the language here is just cruel and unnatural treatment of children. Can we just, I kind of just think we should just call it what it is. It's child abuse. It's abuse and sexual abuse of children. Is that what we're talking about in that sentence? Most people reading that would go, yeah, but what do you mean? It might be slightly nuanced, but I always think it's better to just punch it out for what it is. But I think a lot of the things that we get are all about resources, and I know you do. Do your absolute best with what you've got. On the missing persons comment, I can only just thank your officers for all the, the work you do on that. I think it's brilliant. I think your social media is fantastic, getting out, because people share and share and share. And then it's, such a relief when you see again on Facebook, so-and-so is being found and located. We've had experience of that in my own ward. And honestly, you guys, just commend the Dingwall team as well. I think they're great on this. They've been brilliant. So just pass it on for me. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so just going to your first point about the sort of threshold. I suppose we rely on our members of the community quite heavily on providing information and intelligence to us. But I always try and describe it if I had a jigsaw puzzle. And each piece of that puzzle is a bit of intelligence, and the more intelligence and information we get, the better the clarity of that picture. So we can only put in, so basically what we do is we gather information and intelligence. Once we reach a point where we think we have enough that we might be able to apply and crave a drug search warrant, and we will fill in an application, and that goes to the Procurator Fiscal, and they review our application and all this sort of intelligence and information. And if they agree that we have enough, then obviously we can apply to a sheriff for a drug search warrant and get that issued. If they don't, they might come back with some sort of advice saying we just need a wee bit more clarity or a wee bit more information on that. So then we have to go back to try and gather more information and intelligence. But again, it depends on how old the intelligence is. So if it's, from last year or even, 9 months ago, they might not count that because it's not recent intelligence. So there's a lot of sort of different sort of boundaries that we have to work within, but we still want the community. So if they are smelling cannabis coming from a property, I would advise them and ask them to phone it in, or if you don't want to phone it in, you can email the police, or you can go through Crime Stoppers. So there's different ways to obviously pass that information on to us. And once that's on, we don't just sit in it, because people always think, oh, they haven't done anything with what I've told them. But if we only have one person saying I can smell cannabis from a house, we don't have enough of a threshold to then apply for a warrant. But they think we're not doing anything with it. But in the background, we'll be trying to get more information, and that comes from all officers and different departments, etc. and that as well. So that's a quick whistle-stop tour, I suppose, in terms of how we go about the drugs, etc. In terms of house break-ins, it's probably one of the worst things that can happen to you in terms of somebody coming into your house to violate your own sort of personal space and property. We have victim support agency that we can refer individuals to. There are obviously third sector organisations that we can refer them to, and information sharing that as well. So we can ask them if they want referred, and if they do, then we'll pass on their details to that third sector agency, who will then get in contact with them to provide that support. And obviously, if people end up going to court, they can get support as well for how it goes through our court procedure and that as well. Housebreakings are quite hard in terms of inquiries to detect. So obviously we can do our usual scenes of crime. We rely on house to house, neighbours, CCTV, etc. and that as well. But obviously some individuals that perpetrate these are very good at what they do, and have sort of evolved over time, shall we say, that they've got better each time they do it and that as well. So obviously it can be quite difficult to trace and apprehend, but sometimes it could take several months. So we could detect somebody after April, which would show in April's figures, but it would actually be for a crime that's occurred in 25, 26. So it's just the way that the detections are recorded as well. They might be detected in next sort of terms, figures, but it might be for a crime that's occurred this time and that as well. So and then in terms of children, the classifications, obviously the classifications come from sort of the government, and there's literally hundreds of different charge codes. So that what you're seeing there in the crime stats on page 11 will just cover probably a number of different charges, which could range from child neglect to child abuse and that as well. So it's just obviously a sort of overall figure, I think. Hopefully that's answered your questions.
Brilliant, thank you. I really appreciate the threshold thing. It's really complicated, isn't it? I don't think people realise that. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Edmonston.
Thank you. Thank you, David. I've got a few little questions, hopefully one-liners to answer. You went through the fatalities on the road, and then you gave a breakdown for the northern area, and I think you mentioned one in Caithness, one at between Invergordon and Delny on the A9, another one on a roundabout on the A9, but I heard no mention of the B9176 accident fatality on the Struy Road. So I wanted to know whether that is included in your figures, or have the police forgotten about the Struy Road? I would also like to know how many, when I'm looking at these figures of the offences, I think it's important to bear in mind that actually the Highland area population, I don't know how much the northern area population has increased by 14% for that period that you're looking at. So if everything was the same, then you'd expect to see a 14% increase in crime across the board, because you're recording it as numbers. So I think it's important to get the figures you presented in context here, and it might be useful for the police to actually consider as a ratio of the population. Also, the definition of a wildlife, I'm looking at wildlife crime figures. So, for instance, if a stop notice is issued, is that counted as a crime, or just like a prevention of a crime? You know, because it hasn't gone to court or been prosecuted. And I think, what was the other? And I also like to know how many active officers at any one time on average are actually working in our area committee area, or, you know, actually detecting crime and doing that. And not civilian people working for the police, but actual police officers. Thank you.
Yeah, so I just picked out, so of your fatal locations, I just picked out the 3 that were on A9, but of the 6 that we have for the north, we've got one at just by Watton Cemetery up in Caithness. We've got one, obviously, that I mentioned between Invergordon and Milton on the A9, which was, I think, Lower Tilloch. The B9176, which you mentioned, was at, pardon my pronunciation, but Dooney. The A9 at Latherin, the A32 at, again, pardon my pronunciation, but Turnaig, which is near Poolew, and then the A9 Conagower. That's your areas that have occurred for the fatal. So in terms of the C, I just mentioned just to show that we're at different points, but no, all 6 and no fatals ever forgotten about or not going to be mentioned. So just for that. In terms of the racial population, I think we just obviously go on the figures year to date in terms of crimes recorded, and they're not put against the increase in population, because as much as obviously the population I think has increased by, I think you said 14% this year, it won't officially be recorded, but they just compare stats on year to year figures. In terms of wildlife crime, I have to admit it's not one of my areas of expertise, so I will ask the wildlife crime officer, who you've probably all seen on Highland Cops, and I'll get back to you, Councillor Edmondson, on that one. And I think your last one was on the number of officers who are out detecting crimes. So we have officer levels that we have to meet each day. So Alness, Tain and Dingwall, we have, Alness and Tain, it's and Goldsby 1+8, so a sergeant and 8, and then for sort of the Dingwall area, it's a sergeant and 4. So we will always have a minimum number of officers that are on. Obviously, they won't always be out being proactive because they have paperwork to do in terms of reports for the fiscal. They've got requests from the fiscal. They've got citations, etc., and that to deliver as well. But we're always trying to have as many cops as we can out being visible and proactive. But obviously, with other stuff that's ongoing in the organisation, that can't always be the case.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I wasn't asking about particular crime. It was just more about how it's reported. So if you prevent a crime from taking place because you put the stop notice, is that actually recorded as a crime? I think that's what I was asking.
Yeah, I will find out for you, sir, and I will get back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you again for that. So if I can ask Councillor Ramsey to join us.
I'm trying to use this phone and I don't quite know all the buttons of it yet. I was waiting till after this subject and then I would log on to the laptop, but hopefully you can hear me okay. It's just a quick question. I really enjoyed that report. It's really interesting to see all the numbers and the figures actually written down. And yeah, so thank you so much for that. Just a quick question regarding when we were talking about going into schools and places like that. And you were saying sometimes it's not best, sometimes you might not listen as much and stuff. Do you work with other agencies and charities? Because there is a lot out there that, you know, that maybe be for drug prevention or active groups that try and engage young people. Is this something that you guys work with, or is that more, you know, they do their stuff and you guys do their stuff? Thank you.
I suppose directly we won't always work, like for example if it was one specific area, but obviously through, you know, the Highland and Alcohol Drug Partnership, these other third party agencies or third sector agencies will be involved, or we will know them through the prevention and intervention officers and that as well. So we do work closely, or as much as we can, with third party agencies, and we do find that sometimes they're the better ones to present the information to some pupils. Not to say that means we won't do it ourselves. It's just that sometimes it's better coming from someone who's maybe not in the police. They might not be as open and honest if they get asked if anyone ever taken drugs, thinking that if I say something we're going to note their names and details and go round to the house and knock on the door and that as well. So sometimes it's a safer environment for sort of pupils to be more honest and express themselves. And obviously some of your areas have got you know, the Planet Youth Forum and that as well. So again, we get information from them that can get passed on to us and that as well. So we do work with them as closely as we can. Hopefully that answers that for you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that is good. Thank you.
Okay, and if I can hand over to Councillor Cross.
Thank you, Lindsay. I will be very, very quick. Fascinating presentation. Thank you, David. Due to a family connection, I'm very aware of an organisation called Future Pathways. And this is one that we should all be aware of because it provides support for people that with categories of which we mentioned earlier in terms of victims of historic abuse or adverse childhood experiences. And it's a government-sponsored scheme that is providing phenomenal support, both practical and financial and psychological, to victims of adult victims of historic abuse. So I just wanted to throw that into the mix, but it's useful information. It's a brilliant organisation. Thank you.
Yes, sorry, I don't know if that was just an update or if you want a reply to me from that. No.
Fantastic. And then last but by no means least, Councillor
Sorry,
Collier.
Thank you so much, Lindsay, and thank you so much, David, for the presentation. Like, the report, it's really interesting to see the figures there. I did not want to ask any questions, but since this part is not being covered by others, I just decided to ask you a quick question. Now, according to the report that you submitted, assault and shoplifting figures have increased. So I would like to know, is there any specific locations or times driving this, or if there's any early intervention measures being prioritized alongside the enforcement as well? Now, this is from my personal experience as well. I know when we had to face antisocial behavior, I can't blame the police at all because they have given the maximum support that they can offer. But I think there has to be a collective approach of all public services coming together to address the matter. And I would like to know, like, if there's anything that you can, or anyway that you think the police could get more support to address this matter, and also try to use this as a platform to share my concerns about the fraud when it comes to banking. As an ex-banker, I would say it's not easy. Anyone who's cyber savvy can anytime get caught up with all these scammers, and it's very easily done. And the bank, I have to share the concern of closing of the local branches, because this is the only place for people to have a safe connection and finding the right answers for themselves. And I'm really, really worried what the future will be like with no local branches for all these vulnerable people. Like I said, I'm going to use this platform to share my concerns, and I think we all have to have a better way of thinking how we can address this matter. It's going to be a very dangerous world going forward with all the cyber world. So yeah, with the technology. Thank you so much, David. Sorry, I'm just sharing my concerns there. Thanks.
No, thank you. In terms of, I'll start with shoplifting. So obviously, we do have some shops that will be prolific targets in terms of your bigger chains, your supermarkets, etc. So what we do is we will work with them and we'll get the prevention intervention officer, and they will go in and do like a security sort of survey on the premises. And then following that, they will come up with recommendations about maybe where they should maybe have displays of alcohol or other products, etc. and that as well. It's for the shop to decide if they take up our advice. Sometimes our advice doesn't always go with promotions or trying to promote certain products and that as well. So we can only provide advice on how to best sort of target harden our shop. And at times it's taken, at times it's not. In terms of times and dates, there's no, we get morning, we get afternoon, we get evening, and there's no specific sort of pattern as such. It just depends when somebody goes into a shop. And just to, I suppose, break it down, we have people shoplifting because of obviously the cost of living just now, and they might be shoplifting for food. We have people who have addictions and it's to feed their addictions, and then we have people who potentially could be shoplifting for, it could be, I need a bit of excitement, it's a thrill, and then it becomes a sort of habit. I need to do something bigger to get a bigger thrill, etc. and that as well, or I haven't been caught and that as well. So we do work with people. So those on addictions, we will try and provide that support. The harm prevention officer that I mentioned, he will work with them in that as well to try and curb the offending. But obviously we need to look at the root causes. So if we can find out the root cause, then obviously we will provide either signposting to people that can provide that support, and that if we can't, unfortunately, people still do it, and obviously that's when we get called. In terms of assaults, again, it's a bit like shoplifting. You might think assaults would be Friday, Saturday would be the busiest time for assaults, but sometimes it could be a Monday, Tuesday. There's no sort of pattern as such. Yes, with sort of Friday, Saturday, the sort of people may have more days off and that over the weekend, and obviously alcohol consumption may go up. You might think we'll have an increase in assaults, but again, they can occur any time and over the week. Obviously, alcohol and drugs do play a part sometimes with it, but again, I can't really say there's a peak. Generally, I'd probably say evening times, maybe more for assaults, just because people might have been drinking throughout the day or maybe consuming in some controlled substances. But again, we do get them at all times and that as well. And with frauds, the banks, we have protocols in place for the banking protocols. So if somebody comes in and the bank staff think that they may be the victim of a fraud, or what they're asking just doesn't sound quite right, they will phone us, and then we can attend and just ask them more questions on that as well. So we do try and work closely with the banks, and like you said, the banks have prevented quite a lot of frauds from occurring, and hopefully they continue to do that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for all of that, David, and I appreciate you spending the time to go over the report with us and take all of our many questions. So thank you very much for your time today.
No, thank you all. Nice to see you.
Great to see you too. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks very much for your time.
So we are now moving on to item number 4, which is the various common good funds that we have across our area. So I believe we have Lynn and Fiona coming in to go over this with us. And I think we are starting off with number A, or letter A, which is the Cromarty Common Good Fund.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. Good morning, members. The report provides you with the annual summary of the previous year's accounts and the Q3 monitoring position for the current financial year, and the proposed budget for the year ahead for the Cromarty Common Good Fund. Members, you will be familiar with the format, and the detailed information is set within the report, and I'm very happy to take any questions you might have. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. Do we have any questions on the Cromarty Common Good Fund, or is it all pretty self-explanatory for everybody? Oh, Councillor McCann.
Thank you. I just had a wee quick question. In expenditure, I noticed staff costs had gone up quite significantly. And I was just wondering if you could give us a bit of information around that. And also the rents are down quite a lot. So again, I was just looking for a wee bit of insight in regards to those.
Thank you, Councillor McCallum. Yeah, happy to come in on that, Chair. Okay, thank you. Yeah, with regards to the staff costs, that is reflective of the work that has been undertaken in regards to the consultation work of which you'll be familiar with, and to align to the general costings around staff costs. And also with regards to the rentals, members, you'll be aware that the property has been vacant since the last tenant gave up their tenancy. We are working with a community group around that, but that is in process at the moment. So in the interim, there has been no income from rentals. I hope that responds well to your query, Councillor McCallum.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to make sure I had clarity on that for going forward. So thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yes, Harkin.
This is a quick one, Lynn. Obviously, with the work that's going on with the community group and that asset, I mean, should we be, it's probably a discussion outside of this committee, but should we be a bit concerned about the assets within this common good, you know, and the sustainability issue? Or are you confident that we're all okay for the longer term?
If I may, could I seek a bit of clarification on your question, Councillor Atkin?
I just wonder about the longer term sustainability because we all lost Victoria Hall to realise it wasn't a common good asset, about the common good assets in Cromarty, and whether, you know, the fund itself is going to be, I mean, much longer term beyond us, sustainable with the other asset going that's been empty anyway. It's just been Highland paying rent, but nothing happening. Which is a conversation for off here. I'm happy to agree to everything that's in the recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Atkin. Yeah, if I can reassure, there is work ongoing with a group around a rental, a community group, and that is in process. But yeah, beyond that, I think what we've seen in the past is that the asset, the building, if we're talking about East Church Hall in particular, has been rented by various third sector organisations, and the aspiration is for it to be continued to be used for community use. So yeah, happy to pick that up with this conversation, but I hope that offers reassurance at this point. Thank you.
Yep, great.
Super. Are there any further questions on the Cromarty Common Good Fund? And if not, are we happy therefore to agree the recommendations that that we're happy with the accounts, and we've scrutinised the position, and we approve the budget for 26-27?
Approved.
Lovely. That means I think we're moving swiftly on to Fortrose and Rosemarkie.
Thank you, Chair. So the report provides the annual summary of last year's accounts, the Q3 monitoring position for the current financial year, and the proposed budget for the year ahead for Fortrose and Rosemarkie Common Good Fund. Again, members, you'll be very familiar with the format, and the detailed information is set within the report, and I'm very happy to respond to any questions you may have. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I had a question, and it's probably just for a statement of clarity. Given that we've now, had a resolution to the future of the caravan park, how far on are we with that being resolved, set in stone, and a fait accompli, as it were?
Thank you, Chair. I think probably the Common Good Officer would be best placed to respond to that. But my understanding is that the application has been lodged and is going through the formal process. But beyond that, I think I could pick up with the Common Good Officer and ask for a briefing for you, if that would be acceptable.
Thank you. I think it's just important for the future of this Common Good Fund to have this over the line. So I think we're all quite keen to see that.
Thank you, Chair. I shall pick that up with the... Sorry.
Yeah. So if we could catch up at a future point, that would be great. But are there any further questions about the Fortrose and Rosemarkie Common Good Fund? So are we all happy to agree the recommendations?
Happy to agree.
Agreed.
Super duper. Okay, so now we are going over the bridge to Invergordon and the Invergordon Common Good Fund. So Fiona, is that one with you?
It is. Thank you, Chair, and good morning, members. So the report provides an overview of the financial position and key activities of the Invergordon Common Good Fund. It covers 3 financial periods: the audited statement and accounts and final monitoring for 24-25, the income and expenditure monitoring position as of the 31st of December for Q3, including the projected year-end spend for 25-26, and the proposed budget for the next financial year. So I'd just like to highlight a couple of points. The 24-25 account showed a surplus of 2,138 alongside a significant revaluation gain of 305,000. And this related to the Bouchardon bust and contributes to the total reserves of 2.975 million. In section 6, the 24-25 Q3 monitoring report indicates that the fund is within budget, with income exceeding expenditure and a year end of surplus of £2,000 forecast. Looking ahead, the proposed budget for 26-27, which is set out in Appendix 4, This anticipates a surplus of 900, which is supported by stable rental income and revised costs requirements associated with the ongoing work on the potential disposal of the Bouchardon bust. The report finishes in section 8 by highlighting current updates, including the ongoing export licence review for the bust. And there's also an expression of interest submitted for a community asset transfer for Invergordon Town Hall. And members, it's important to note that this report was written on the 7th of January and a further update on the Bouchardon bust is now available. In summary, the reviewing committee on the exports of works and arts and objects of cultural interest has agreed that it meets all three criteria of the Waverley, all three of the Waverley criteria. So what that means is the decision on the export licence application for the bus will be deferred for a period ending on the 8th of April 26. There's a recommended price of £3,135,090, and that price does include the production of a replica of the bust. So that's me. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Cockle, you appear to be first with your hand up, so I'll pass to you.
Thanks very much, and thanks Fiona for the update. Yeah, I think we're all quite interested in the Bouchardon bust and how that's proceeding. I presume the institution that had expressed an interest in the bust are aware that they have 3 months in which to raise over 3 million. Yeah, that's going to be a tall order for the institution I'm aware of anyway. Yeah, so I think it's going to be more likely to be sold away unless they've got a benefactor. There was something else, but it may come back to me, but I'll shut up just now.
Fiona, are you just wanting to come back?
Yes,
on
Chair.
that?
Yes. So a press release was issued following the a press release was issued from the committee, but we can certainly make the institution referring to aware of the situation, just so that in case they've missed any notice from that press release.
Fantastic. Okay, Councillor Edmiston.
I actually spoke to Fiona earlier this morning, so she's had prior warning of this question. So I would like to know whether the costs that are included in the papers presented to us had a multiplier affected to them. Were the costs, the direct costs of the Highland Council, on a 1-to-1 ratio, or was there a multiplier used to charge it against the Common Good Fund? I don't know what the process. I'm not saying either is a bad thing, but if there is a multiplier, I'd like to know the value of that multiplier.
Thank you, Chair. So with Councillor Edmondson flagging this question, I've gone away to find out some information with regard to this. So the Common Good Fund is charged a fixed contribution towards the Common Good Officer, plus a charge for any additional pieces of significant work, for example, the Bouchardon bust or reviews. In addition to this, there's also fixed costs for the central support, which covers business support and finances. So my understanding that the costs are not subject to a multiplier, but I'm waiting for further information to come back from finance colleagues. So Councillor Edmondson, as soon as I've received that, I will let you know. Thank you.
Thank you, Fiona.
Okay, Councillor Collier.
Thank you. Thank you, Fiona, for answering Councillor Edmondson before. I was going to ask the same, similar sort of question. So I'll wait for that to respond if you can share it among all of us. Regarding the export license, just in case if it gets refused, what alternative options are available to realize community benefit from these assets, from the Bouchardon bust? And also, I would like to know what will be the ongoing officer and legal cost associated with these major assets being like, controlled to avoid repeated pressure on the revenue budget, because it wasn't quite clear on the report. So if I can get the answers to them too, that'll be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Collier. So if I can come back to you on both those points, I'd like to consult with, again, the Common Good Officer and come back with a briefing for you all on those 2 points. Thank you, Councillor Collier.
And at the moment, last but by no means least, Councillor Watkin.
Yeah, I was just going to say, unless there's actually a real actual buyer from abroad. I mean, we don't know. It's a kind of summation. We don't know who the person is or what institution they might be. I mean, any UK institution can come in now and purchase it, but if there isn't an overseas buyer, that means it can't be exported. Then it just remains the property. This, I'll quote: "Superb, exceptional work of art, which deserves to be saved for the nation." Quoting the Stuart Lockhead of the reviewing committee. It would just resort back to the common good. So, it's pretty difficult for the group or for the community or the people that want it to remain in Scotland or in the UK if there isn't, there is no evidence there actually is an overseas buyer, because nobody knows who they are. So it's kind of, do you know what I mean? So then it just stays as it is if there isn't an export to be done. That makes sense. It all seems a bit transparent. I don't know if that's the right word. I mean, anyone can buy it in the UK, any institution can raise the money to buy it. Similar things have been done across the country.
Fiona, are you wanting to come back there?
Just to say that the anticipation is that the bust is sold, but in hearing your question, your query is, do we have a plan B? Is
no,
that
if there isn't a buyer to export it to, it comes back to be the property of the council / common good fund. Do you see what I mean? This whole process is about exporting it.
Okay. Again, I think I'd take that point back to Common Good Officer, and if we can come back on all 3 of those points around the detail of the bust and provide an update on the 3 points that have been raised so far. Chair, you're on mute.
Thank you. Yeah, I was going to say my understanding really is that the bust, as wonderful as it is, it's actually too valuable to be displayed locally and securely. And
Lindsay, that's not true. All museums have the same insurance in the UK to display valuable works of art. Otherwise, no one would be able to afford to display anything in any museum in the country. So that is a spurious argument. That's actually not accurate. Sorry to come in, but that's, we have to be accurate for on cameras, particularly.
I would take advice, and I don't appreciate being butted in on when I'm the chair. So thank you, Councillor Coghill.
Thanks for allowing me to come back in for a better second bite. Yeah, I presume the reason that we're here, facing a sale to hopefully a British institution, is that it was kicked off because an external market became known to us through Sotheby's, as I understand it. So I think there is a real buyer there, or why did we start this? And yeah, it's quite urgent for a British institution to come up with the cash and a significant sum as well. I'm amazed at the additional cost of producing a replica, high quality as it may be. I wonder who put that out to tender? ? I think that's worthy of exploration. Thank you.
Chair, if I can come back briefly, my understanding is that that's all been done through Sotheby's, but again, we'll add this to the list of queries that have been raised at committee today and come back with an update on all of them. Thank you.
Thank you. So as we have now no more questions, are we happy to agree the recommendations of agreeing the Common Good Fund statement, scrutinising and note the Common Good Fund as shown in the quarters, and approve the proposed budget? Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Edmonston, have you?
Yeah, I sort of have a point of order. If we've got all these questions to get answered, are we able to approve any budgets? I don't know. That's just a question for members on that. Does it affect what we're being asked to do today?
I don't think the questions affect setting the budget, to be honest. And we were asked to agree that the statement appears correct. So, and that we've been asked to scrutinise the Common Good Fund, which we've done, and we've been asked to approve the ongoing budget for next year. And I don't think that budget is impacted in any way by what's going on with the bust in the longer term. Okay. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Fiona, if you're wanting to come in, you're more than welcome.
Just that in terms of the draft budget for 26-25, the main associated costs would be the increase in staff costs for the Common Good Officer associated with the bust, which are proposed at £3,500.
But that reflects the work that's gone into the...
Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Appreciate that. Does that clarify things for you, Councillor Edmonston?
Yes, I couldn't keep up with all the questions that Fiona's got to answer after the meeting. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. So in that case, are we all happy to agree the recommendations?
Great.
Fantastic, thank you. Okay, so we are now moving on to the last of our Common Good Funds, which is Tain. So Fiona, I think we're sticking with you as wonderful as you are.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so like the previous reports, this also provides an overview of financial position, but this time it's for the Tain Common Good Fund. So again, same three financial periods, the audited statement of accounts and final monitoring for 24-25, the Q3 monitoring position as of 31st of December and projected year-end spend for 25-26, and finally the proposed budget for the next financial year. Again, I'd like to highlight some key areas of the report. So firstly, the integrated impact assessment identified potential areas for positive impact as a result of the 26-27 budget. Mainly in the proposed budget, which I'll come to in a second, the addition of a £10,000 contribution to support the creation of a development officer to provide a resource to support the ongoing work towards the development of a new leisure facility to replace track. The impact assessment identified potential longer-term impact of this being an increase in health and well-being outcomes for the community. The Section 5, the 24-25 Statement of Accounts, members will note there was a surplus of £25,129, which was largely due to higher than budgeted interest and investment income and limited expenditure on property and mussel fisheries. Members, please note that in Section 6, the appendix for Q3 for 25-26 is noted in the body of the report as Appendix 3. This should actually be Appendix 4, so apologies for the typo. And members will remember that as agreed by BR Committee on the 10th of November 25, that the property budget was increased to 14,950, and that was to meet essential property repairs, including the Alexandra Bridge, with further work covering dealing with the storm damaged trees and painting of railings at the Duthick Centre, and both of these will be reported at the next committee. So with all of that in mind, a year-end surplus of £840 is currently forecast. So on to the proposed budget for 26-27, which reflects significant increase in rental income following the reclassification of assets. So members will note that this will now rise from 7,950 to 24,900. The draft budget also has essential expenditure commitments, including the continued provision of the mussel fisheries, maintenance works on common good assets, which requires an increase to the property budget to 18,800. And in paragraph 7.3.2, this highlights a proposed £10,000 grant contribution to support the development officer role. So this resource is intended to replace, as I said, to progress the replacement of track. It's anticipated that a £10,000 contribution towards this will provide that dedicated resource, which will identify and secure additional funding required to realise the new facility. With all of these proposals in mind, the draft budget shows a balanced budget with no surplus or deficit forecast. So just finally, members, section 8 will provide updates on recent asset classifications and the ongoing essential maintenance work, and noting that a condition survey has been commissioned on key buildings, including the Duthick Centre. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Fiona. And first of all, I'd like to say thank you to both yourself and to Lynn for the good stewardship of our common good accounts and how fantastically you look after us all with them. And I do think that Tain's this time looks like the most comprehensive set of accounts, given the amount of works that have had to happen, you know, and so I really appreciate not just the report itself, but the work that's gone on behind the scenes to make so much of that happen. Do we have any questions from the members? Councillor Dundas.
Yeah, not so much questions, but just a thank you to Fiona and the officers behind the scene who have, as you said, Lindsay, we have had a lot of work to do on the Common Good Fund this time. We've had some new assets come over to us, and we've had a bit of work to do to make sure that we're able to maintain those assets, and also to note that the 10,000 that we're hoping to approve today will go a huge way to help the steering group move this project in the right direction. It's a really, really important addition that we're asking the Common Good Fund to make this decision. So yeah, Fiona, thanks so much for all your guidance and help behind the scenes to get us to this stage today. It's very much appreciated.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Dundas.
I've just got a very quick question. Is 10,000 going to be enough? I mean, you know, being realistic here.
So we're also looking to match fund that, Sarah, with another community group that are going to hopefully support a match fund to that. Yeah.
Even with that, it's still a, you know, multi-million-pound
fundraise.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we do have a little plan in place. Yeah, we do have a little plan in place, Sarah. Thanks.
Thank you. And Councillor Ross.
Yeah, I was just going to chip in there. We do have another plan in, but we need to get started, and any development officer would be totally concentrating on the track, not finding funding for every other project that's going on in Tain. So, but we do have a plan B as well. But we need to get started. We've got a 5-year window, and we need to get started. So thank you very much, and thank you, Fiona, for all that you've done on this. Really appreciate the work that's put into it. Thank you.
So just to ask everybody once again, are we happy to agree the recommendations of the report? Which, if I can skip very quickly back up to them, it was to consider and agree the Tain Common Good Fund statements of accounts, to scrutinise the position of the Tain Common Good Fund, and approve the budget for 26-27. Are we all happy with that?
Agreed.
Happy to approve.
Fantastic. So thank you, Fiona, and thank you again, Lynn. That was brilliant. Thank you. So next we are on to the education reports for the various ASGs. So welcome along, Annika and Isabel. And and I believe the order we're going in is Invergordon ASG, Fortrose ASG, Tain ASG, no, Alness ASG, then Tain. So if I can hand over to yourselves, that would be great.
Yeah, good morning, members. So I'm here to bring 2 reports, and then Isabel will bring the other 2. Okay. So my first report today is for Invergordon Academy ASG, and the report provides an update of key information in relation to the schools within the ASG group and provides links and overview attainment for primary schools from June 24-25, the most up-to-date data we have. And that is unless it's otherwise stated. An updated report for secondary, as we haven't got their full data yet, will be brought later in the year when all the data can be shared, what they will look like for 24-25 too. So you will know this already, but the primary schools in the area, these are 360 pupils currently, or I should say September census, and the ELC settings are 50 children, and some of them are in local authority settings, and sometimes it could also be in private settings, but they're all in local authority in the Invergordon area. The secondary school, September census, had 313 young people. So what we're asking you to do today, members, is to scrutinise and note the content of the report regarding the primary school's attainment. And as you can see from the report from Invergordon, the Invergordon overview, there's quite a lot of information within. So what we're asking as well, if you have any specific questions around specific schools, we're really happy to come along again, but maybe to the area business meeting, and we can also then bring the head teachers to answer your more detailed questions. Within the report, you can see how the schools rated themselves on the standards and quality reports in June 25. And as we go through the year, that can change, obviously, in terms of what's happening in the school. You can also see from the report that one school within the ESG have had an inspection by HMI within the 5 last years. Now, all primary schools within the ESG, they have an attendance over 91%, and that attendance, that means that some schools are above local and national data, and some of them slightly below. The academy is below the national and the Highland average data. The attainment overview for primary schools show that the schools with the ESG perform below Highland average in majority of areas. And please note that smaller schools have not been shared due to confidentiality of individuals, because it's quite easy to identify them. Within the Invergordon ESG, we have a real push on attainment, which we are all supporting them around. So it would be good to maybe come back to an area business meeting around that. So thank you for that, Chair. I don't know if you want me to go straight to the Fortrose report, or if you want to pick some questions if there are any.
Why don't we see if there's any questions first on the CSG area? Councillor Collier.
Thank you so much, Annika, for the report, and it's really nice to see some good news in the report as well. So can I ask you a few questions, very quick, short ones? Now, can you clarify which interventions are having the greatest impact on attainment and attendance, particularly for pupils affected by poverty, if it's identified and can be elaborated more? And also, how are the transition between primary and secondary being supported where attainment gaps are already evident on the report, according to the report? Now, my third question is, what additional support is being provided for ASN pupils and care experienced young people across the ASG? Now, I only can talk about my ward, ASG. So, yeah. And regarding the Invergordon Academy, the report says about the local socioeconomic context. So what targets, what's targeted support is being prioritized for Invergordon ASG, and how is success being measured beyond headline attainment data? Sorry, my camera is not working. So if I can get some of the answers, I know you may not have all the answers in your hand right now. That's perfectly fine. If you can just give me some idea of how we can address these issues, that'll be more than enough for today. But if we can take things off, later on in detail, that'll be even better. Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Annika, would you like to take the councillors' questions one at a time or in groups?
Yeah, absolutely fine. So, I mean, I can say generic, but as Councillor Collier said as well, I think it would be really good to maybe bring head teachers to come through and actually share to you exactly what they're doing in terms of targeted support. But obviously, greatest impact is targeted support and interventions. We do a lot of that across Invergordon, and I'm doing a team of meetings with all the head teachers at the moment, which is actually really good. But also show the tracking that we have across the schools, which follows them from early years actually straight through academy, but also we also have something called PEF interventions, pupil equity funding, which is linked to free school meals, including allowance. So we get additional money coming in from that, which the head teacher are really targeting, not necessarily just on the kids that are entitled to it, but they're trying to widen it out as well to give the the best outcomes for all young people and give them the right opportunities. In terms of transition, I am really pleased to say it's a really efficient transition in the Invergordon area. And last year, they had, I think there's a new deputy in there with new ideas. So the feedback from young people, parents and staff are really, really positive, really extended, but also really clear a handover of the data, attainment data, so they can continue where they are. Additional support around lack and additional support needs. Also, obviously, we have an additional support needs model, an allocation model that we're using. And also, as I said, we looked after children. We have a lot of wider support around looked after children with the Home to Highland and so on that we are using and targeted support. And that's in addition to our pupil equity funding. Invergordon Academy, other targets and support. Again, we have the pupil equity funding, but also we are looking at beyond the tariff point and how much data and so on, how many sitting hires. We're doing higher achievements as well, national awards. But obviously I mean, we could talk for the whole day around this, but I can bring the head teachers to it and maybe have specific questions because there's quite a lot in this. Tamala.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Collier, I should say.
That's
but
okay. That's
happy.
okay.
I think I've given you a very broad overview, but happy to come back as in a business area meeting.
I think that'll be the best way possible because we need to get answers, and these are quite kind of sensitive and also very information driven, data driven. So yeah, I believe it's better if we can come to the area business meeting or take them separately. That'll be much better. Thank you. I'll keep my mouth shut now. Thanks.
You're always welcome, Councillor Collier. So next is Councillor Edmiston.
Thank you, Chair. I have some questions about the presentation, but just before we go any further, I think there's quite a few issues in both schools presented here in our ward, the catchment areas. My own view is that actually it might be a conversation that's better had at a ward meeting where things can be, where we can discuss the more local issues rather than the area business committee. I think that environment might be better for some of the things that we might need to discuss when looking at these things. That's my own view. I don't know. I'd be interested to hear what fellow members here about that. Think about that. Now it's going to get confusing because we have different page numbers to your report, but page 56.1, paragraph 6.1. If I don't like the American styling of the date, but I'm assuming that was April 24 was the last inspection for Invergordon Academy. Have there been no further inspections since then?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, so I've got a few questions, I'm afraid. I think coming back to Marla, addressing some of the issues, for instance, the literacy, exclusion rates are high in both the schools, actually, both the academy areas. And in paragraph 9.2 and 921, if I'm reading, I cannot get a level on, say, are there any indications of maybe an expected national or Highland levels for these? And I don't actually know what the virtual comparator is. So I ought to really try and understand that. I think in paragraph 962, I'm not quite sure where apprenticeships fall in that, whether that's employment, training, further education. I mean, it is all of the above, if you see what I mean. So I don't know where apprenticeships sit in those columns. And I noticed this figure fluctuates quite a lot, but the 8% unemployed and not seeking work is a strange concept. So I'd sort of like to just understand what that actually means. It's not, I suppose I'm looking at the data here, you know, I'm trying to sort of step back, and I think some of the issues that identified in this report and that we're noting, I think means that we need to have further discussions with the head teachers and you know, the educationalists on this, because there's some very worrying things that I'm seeing here, and I'm concerned.
Do you want to make a comment, Chair?
Thank you.
Is that okay? Right, there's quite a lot of details in that, Councillor Edmondson. So I agree with you. I think it would be good if I can come along with the head teacher and we can unpick a lot of the questions you and the data we have around the academy, particularly, as you highlighted. What I wanted to say to you about Virtual Academy, the school is compared to an anonymous school with the same kind of context and same profile. So you can then, you're compared to another school somewhere in Scotland that have the same catchment area, if I put it like that, the same context. So you can then see how you perform compared to that. So that's what you say in Virtual Academy. In terms of apprenticeships and so on, again, and positive destination, I'm hearing what you're saying, but I would suggest I bring the head teacher and we can have all those really detailed conversations at an area business meeting, if that's okay, Chair.
Sorry, Lindsay, can I just come in? I'd quite like to know when the last inspection was. Was it indeed 2024?
Yeah, so the school was re-inspected and the head teacher, I was going to say the current, the previous head teacher had the first inspection. The current head teacher came in to a re-inspection. I think she had been in post for 2 or 3 weeks when she had the re-inspection in her school. That was then followed up with a Teams call just before Christmas. And we are now, the inspectorate are coming back at week beginning 16th of March to follow up on the points that had been highlighted in the first inspection. So we have a few areas that needs to be shown as improved. They will be in, there's a short model, what we call a short model, so they'll be in from the Monday to the Wednesday, from the week beginning the 16th.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Lindsay, and thank you, Annika. A lot of this, I'm not sure I understand an awful lot of the detail that's in the report, but one thing when I was looking at it jump out at me is Milton Primary, the primary attainment levels there, they seemed well below the others, and I'm not quite sure what that issue is there. And possibly, like John, it's maybe something that we need to discuss more at a ward level, because actually Milton falls in with Ward 7, although it's in the ASG of Invergordon, and I would like to maybe get a handle on, is there an issue there? Thank you.
Would you like me to come in, Chair? Yeah.
Yes,
so in Milton, there's sometimes a very small cohorts of children. Some year group can have 3 or 4 or 5 children. And if you have a cohort of children who maybe have a lot of additional needs or have other needs, your data suddenly on 3 kids very quickly is very low if you have one child not attaining or achieving, or 2 children, or maybe all 3 are not really. So your data can swing quite drastically from year to year. So the predicted data for Milton, for example, is very, very different from the data 24-25, and that is down to small cohort of children as well. So if you can see there as well, if they're under a cohort of 10, I think it is, there's a C just so you can't identify the children. And that's across Highland. You can see a swing because we have so many small schools. But we're happy to, have, if you want kind of a more discussions, almost like an overview on what it looks like, we obviously can bring that back to share that with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Councillor Cockle.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the report. I would welcome, I've got no further questions at this time, but I would welcome the opportunity to have a sort of ward level meeting so we can get into it in a bit more detail. Yeah, that'd be really good. Thank you.
Absolutely. Are you happy to come along to a further meeting?
Fantastic. So are we happy with the scrutiny and the contents of the report for the Invergordon area ESG report? Super duper. So that moves us swiftly on, Annika, to Fortrose.
Yes, Fortrose as well.
Yes,
so I'm just going to give an overview here, just one I did with Invergordon as well. So obviously this is our report for the Fortrose ESG area with the primary schools and the secondary school. So the primary schools in the area, as per the census in September, have got 689 pupils in primary, and with the ELC setting having 143 children, and 93 of them are in local authority settings and 50 of them are in partner settings. The secondary school in September had 621 young people attending. So again, we're asking members to scrutinise and note the content of the report regarding primary schools attainment data. As you can see from this report, there's a lot of information again within, and again, we're happy to come back to further meeting to unpick the data if you so wish. As you note from the Fortrose ESGs, we have 2 schools within the ESG who had an inspection by HMI within the last 5 years. Within the Fortrose ESG, almost all primary schools have higher attendance than local and nationally, with this high academy slightly under, but I could say slightly. The attainment overview for primary schools shows how schools within the ESG perform in line or above the Highland average in all areas, and with some schools perform over national average too. And again, please note that the smaller schools have not been shared due to confidentiality of individual children. And that's conclude my report. Thank you. Happy to take questions.
No, that's really super. Thank you. I had a question myself, and it was about the attainment in the primary schools, and it's quite startling just how good the primary schools in the Black Isle appear to be, especially when they appear to be in quite often some of the top brackets with literacy and numeracy and reading and writing and language, that they're quite a lot of 90% pluses, which looks amazing. Is there any shared learning that goes on out with the ASG to promote that in other ASGs throughout Highland?
Yeah,
and that's my only question.
That's okay. That's okay. No, we do have learning opportunity, and we have head teacher development days as well when we're bringing in good practice, across Highland, because Highland is so wide and varied. What we're doing as well, we do diagnostic testing of children, because sometimes that's the question we get as well. How do we know it's correct data? So we do the same diagnostics across Highland as well. That gives us a really good indicator if the schools are the professional judgments are in line with that or not. And if not, that's Isabel's and my job. We go out and challenge and make sure it is, because obviously we want to be fair on the schools, but also the children in the school, that are getting the right data allocated to them. So yeah, no, we do a lot of sharing across Highland around what it looks like.
Thank you. Councillor Atkin.
Yeah, I've got some strategic questions and specific. I wouldn't be too complacent, because I have to say our attainment was like way above the national average for Scotland in this particular ASG and the secondary. So I mean, while some of it's encouraging, I would have expected things to be moving even further ahead
but then we've got the reorganisation just kicking in and stuff. So, but I feel we should be, and this is not a criticism of any of our head teachers who have worked their socks off, but I think it could be better, even better, because even at 80%, we're talking about 20% of kids that aren't hitting the spot. So I think 20% for any school is pretty worrying, whatever the context. Slight concerns with ELC on the quality improvement, and also kind of falling school roles is another issue for all of us, I think. I find the banding of the percentages not as helpful as it could be. I think if we could go to, I think this is across all of the reports, if we could go to, I mean, we've got a Highland average and a national average, and then the banding of 70 to 80, 80 to 40 to 50, whatever. I don't think that's as helpful as it could be. I think a figure would be more helpful. And I don't know what everyone else feels, that just to see the ASG, so because of course the small schools we don't include because of the confidentiality. So if we had just an ASG figure that included everybody, but you wouldn't identify the schools, I think that would be helpful, because we want our ASGs to all do well. And actually they will collaborate, they should all be collaborating anyway, and they probably are, Annika, you know, as a secondary and primary clusters. And my other point is, I don't think we did get the latest secondary attainment coming back to committee. So I'd ask Chair if we could have that at the next committee for the secondary attainment, particularly as for this RASG, because obviously we've got a new head and a new, you know, very settled and stable senior management team. And I do think there'll be a significant difference from that. That was all. And on the virtual comparative, I think that's the best way to measure, actually, the fairest way to measure a school for the context. Speaking about Councillor Edmondson's space, because it is the exact replica of a typical school with your socioeconomic makeup nationally. So I think that's as good as an indicator as we're going to get. And I think that's all my points. I mean, obviously, definitely, I'd like a kind of deeper dive at award business on some of the issues, particularly the ELC, because I've always had an issue that I just find it's such a lot for head teachers to do. And, you know, it looks like a struggle if there are a lot of satisfactories around where really we want goods and very goods. Thank you.
Okay, if you want me, if I can come in there, Chair. I don't think there's any questions as that, Councillor Atkins, but I take a note about the report as something we have picked up on as well. You know, if it can be more exact in terms of the attainment data, and also I think it's a good point you're bringing up about the actual overall ESG figure as well to be part of the data and the report. And so I'm going to take this forward with our chief officers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Annika. Councillor McCallum, please.
Thank you, and thank you very much for the report, Annika. I just had a couple of wee questions. Tour School had quite a lot of authorised absence. It's very significant in comparison to the others, and I was wondering if you had any kind of explanation for that. I was also a wee bit worried about the quality report in regards to Tor and Minlochy, and I'm conscious that the head teacher who's absolutely fantastic, it's so incredible, but he's the head teacher for both schools, and that's a lot of pressure. And are we giving him enough support to run both schools? I would hate to see him being burnt out, because he's absolutely fantastic, he's brilliant. So I just wanted to check we are putting in that support. And I think a deeper dive into the figures at Word Business would be really beneficial, because although we have some fantastic figures at 90%, I would hope to see that going higher in the future, because of course we want to close that gap as much as we possibly can. And there are some who are at 60 to 70%, and I think that maybe needs to be looked at to see what support and guidance we can provide, because our teachers are just incredible and we really want to be doing what we can to support and help them. So any insights into that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah. So what we have seen, this is generic, but I'm hearing what you're saying, Tor. Some in our small schools, if you have one child maybe not attending regularly for different reasons, obviously your attendance are really go down starkly because you haven't got many kids, and that could be one of the explanations in a small school what it looks like that. But I'm quite happy to take that up for you in a private forum what that looks like. Okay. And Malachi and Tor, we also have fantastic DHTs and PTs in our school. So in our schools, so obviously we have a head teachers, but we also have a lot of other managers and manager levels, but also teachers who are helping out within the schools. And I'm really pleased to say we have a fantastic principal teacher, Malachi, Tor, a cluster as well. But obviously, again, Isabel's my job in our area. Teams are linking in with schools and support as much as we can as well. And obviously, as our teams build as well, we have more capacity to do even more. So thank you for your questions.
Thank you.
So members, are we happy to note the contents of the Fortrose ASG report?
Noted.
Thank you. Thank you. And now we are moving swiftly on to Alness.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, members. So the Alness report provides an overview of key information in relation to the schools within the Alness Academy Associated Schools Group and provides an overview of attainment, attendance and positive destination data with links for further information. Please note, as Annika mentioned earlier, the information shared within the report is for the session 24-25 unless otherwise stated. So the primary schools in this area have serve 674 pupils. ELC settings serve 162 children, 89 of which are in local authority settings and 73 in partner settings as of the September census data, with the secondary school serving 489 young people. Members are asked to scrutinise and note the content of this report also. As you can see from the report, there is a lot of information within, and as well as earlier mentioned, any specific questions around individual schools we can discuss at an area business meeting, where I can also take along the head teachers, relevant head teachers to join me. Within the report, you can see the schools how the schools have rated themselves on their own standards and quality report in June 2025. As you will also note from the report, one of the schools, Obstdale Primary, within the ASG had an inspection in September 2025. The final report will be, and gradings will be published next week. And at this time, we'll be in a better position to share the gradings and offer further discussion on the inspection findings. The average attendance for the ASGs in primary schools was 90.32% and secondary school 81.55, which is below national and Highland average. The attainment overview for primary schools show that some schools within the ASG perform in line with the national and Highland average, but some performing below. Please note, data of the smallest school has not been shared, as again earlier mentioned, due to the confidentiality of pupils, individual pupils. However, overall, there is an improving picture across the ASG. In secondary, the number of school leavers achieving in literacy and numeracy level 5 has been higher than the virtual comparator for the past 2 consecutive years. The 24-25 leavers data will be published at the end of February, so just bear in mind for our secondary data, it's the previous year's set of data we're looking at here. In senior phase, the average tariff score was below the virtual comparator for the lowest, middle and highest 20% in 23-24. Again, the most recent data will be coming to us later in February. So for pupil destination 16 plus, Alness Academy were above Highland and national average in 23-24. This shows an increase on the previous 2 academic years at the school. And in the appendix, you can also see the projected school roles as well for your information. And that concludes the brief summary for the Alness ASG schools. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Isabel. That was very comprehensive again. I've got a very quick question for you to hand over. Noticing the primary attainment going from 22-23 to 24-25, it does, although maybe not quite where things would want to be. Would you say that's accurate? And would you, are you able to tell us how that trajectory is being encouraged.
Yeah, again, I think because of the variation in school roles that we have within the Alness ASG, the bandings, as Councillor Aitken mentioned earlier, are probably not all that helpful. However, it is something that we would be looking to pick up a more individual discussion, probably with the head teacher of individual schools. It probably would be most helpful in determining the kind of the points that would lead to the published data around the context. So context is everything in relation to schools based on role, etc. Hope that helps. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Edmondson.
Thank you. Isabel, thank you very much. And as you said, that I think it will be productive, particularly in light of Ofstel's inspection results being made known later, for us to have a ward meeting about this area as well. Yeah, and there are a couple of points that particularly kill turn performance and numeracy and things like that that really would be usefully discussed at a ward meeting. But there's something I'd quite like to try and understand in this committee. It's about these figures, and I noticed the big C is basically the confidentiality, but I'm looking at some very big primary schools here of 150 and 100, and the unauthorized absences are being marked as confidential, and that is the same with the Highland primary figures, the unauthorized absences, which are marked as confidential. And I'm trying to think how, with such large numbers, that from that, whatever percentage rate you get would actually identify an individual. And I'm being slightly wary about how the C is being used, if you see what I mean. I'd like to understand the reason for that. There doesn't seem to be any threshold. And I suppose the other thing I'd like to know, especially for the smaller primary schools, where obviously it is in public documents at least maybe easier to identify individuals or narrow it down quite a lot. How does the Education Authority actually monitor these schools? Because if everything's stamped confidential, then we may or may not be able to monitor any failings or successes in the school. So how do we tackle that? Thank you.
Okay, if I'm okay to just come back in there. So again, my suggestion would be that we regroup, and I think it would be helpful for us to have the business intelligence team come in as well. As a team of area quality improvement managers, we're in daily contact with most of our schools, if not ourselves, our education support officers, definitely looking at around at the operational matters such as school attendance. Unauthorised absence is something that we're always striving to prevent and reduce as much as we possibly can. And my explanation for the C's that are appearing in this report would be really probably contributing to the fact that they are, less, the C would be less than 5%. So perhaps it's not identifying the pupil, but it's possibly one pupil that may be leading to that report, but certainly something that we would look to pick up and revisit. If it was a specific focus around attendance, I think that would be helpful to explore a little bit further. In relation to your question about how do we as a local authority provide the ongoing monitoring of our schools, so the quality improvement team, we're very much about supporting and challenging schools, and we do have various quality assurance steps that take place throughout the school year calendar. Annika mentioned earlier about our attainment meetings with our primary schools, which are kind of ongoing throughout January and February. We regularly are in schools supporting our head teachers and leadership teams with quality assurance learning visits into classrooms, so working with our head teachers to observe learning, and then having that collegiate discussion about what good learning looks like, what good practice looks like, and very much supporting and encouraging our head teachers and teachers to look outwards and come along to visit, peer visits to other schools, primary, secondary schools, and beyond, if that's appropriate and possible as well for our school teams. But again, Councillor Edmondson, it's maybe something we can discuss in more detail at a ward meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Isabel. Councillor Atkin.
It's a general point, but I'm just that would refer to all of them. If I look at on this one for Alness Academy on the quality and improvement that says raising attainment and achievement and learning, teaching, assessment is satisfactory, but actually on the virtual comparator on literacy percentage level 5, for instance, you know, they are ahead of the virtual comparator for percentage on numeracy and literacy, and do slightly ahead on the level 4 percentage. Does that mean the quality improvement satisfactory mean that you're ahead of the virtual comparator, but actually we think you should be doing even better? What does, because it's quite often not the correlation between the quality improvement and the output on those particular categories. Just some insight into that would be really helpful. Thank you.
Okay, so every year, every school in Highland and indeed in Scotland has to publish a standards and quality report. And within their standards and quality reporting, they're reporting on our core quality indicators. So if I take, for example, quality indicator 3.2, raising attainment and achievement. So the school will evaluate its overall evaluation of that QI of 3.2. Now 3.2, raising attainment and achievement, it's made up of 4 themes. So the first theme looks at attainment in literacy and numeracy. The second theme looks at attainment over time. The third theme looks at the overall quality of learners' achievements. And the fourth is equity for all learners. So it's the overall grading of that QI which they will publish and report on. And they come to that understanding of their own, where they are in terms of their improvement journey by looking at the 6-point scale, by looking outwards to other schools, perhaps to recent publications of school summary of inspection findings. It's not the head teacher that comes to that decision. It's the head teacher in discussion with the full team, the full school team. So they're very clear about where they are in their improvement journey. How do they know? And the how do we know kind of section is probably the most vital, in that they're looking at the qualitative, looking at the quantitative data and the direct observations as well around that. So it's that triangulation of data and helping to determine their overall grading, and that then helps them to feed into their forward planning in terms of the following year's school improvement plan. So look where they currently are and then look towards where they want to be, and that would feed into their school improvement plan. And I hope that helps to provide a little bit further clarity. Thank you.
Thanks, Isabel.
Thank you so much. If there's no further questions on the Alness ASG, are we happy to note the contents of the report now we've scrutinised it? Happy? Great. And then last but not least is the Tain Royal Academy ASG report. So is that still with yourself, Isabel?
It is, thank you. Okay, so again, now I can say good afternoon, Chair and members. So this report provides an overview of the key information in relation to our Tain Academy and Associated Schools group. Provides an overview again on attainment, attendance and positive destinations data with links for further information. And again, please note the information within this report is for the 24-25 session. So the primary schools in this area serve 543 pupils, with ELC settings serving 135 children, 45 in local authority settings and 90 in our partner settings, as in the September census data, with the secondary school currently serving, September data again, 492 young people. Members are asked to scrutinise and note the content of this report. As you can see from the report, again, there's a lot of information. So again, any further discussion around individual schools can be discussed at area business meetings. And again, I would be pleased to invite our head teachers along to join me. Within the report, you'll see how the schools have rated themselves within their June 25 Standards and Quality report. And you'll also note from this report, and perhaps read about already, 2 of the schools within the ASG were inspected in term 2 of this session. Hill of Fern had a short model inspection in October 2025, with Hilton of Cadboll also being inspected with a full model inspection was actually the following week, in the first week in November 2025. And at the time of writing the report, the inspection findings were not published. However, they are now published and they are available online by following the link provided. And I can invite the two individual head teachers along to the ADS business meetings to discuss the findings of their inspection. The average attendance for the ASGs in Tain was 93.43%, which is above the Highland and national average. Tain Royal Academy average is 86.5%, which is just slightly below the Highland average of 86.8% and national of 88.4%. The attainment overview for the primary schools show that some schools within the ASG for certain organisers perform above national and Highland average, but again, that some perform below. For various reasons, again, context is key in all of this. Please note the data of the smallest schools has not been shared, again, just due to the confidentiality of individuals. In secondary, the number of school leavers achieving in literacy and numeracy level 4 and level 5 has been higher than their virtual comparator for the past 2 consecutive years. 24-25 leavers data will be published in February, later in February, the end of February. Just to mention senior phase, again, previous year's data, the average tariff score was above the virtual comparator for the lowest, middle and highest 20% in 23-24. And for our pupil destination 16 plus, Tain Royal Academy was slightly below Highland and National for 23-24, sitting at 95.19%. Does show an increase from the 22-23 leavers data. I think that concludes the Tain Associated Schools Group summary. Thank you.
Fantastic. Do we have any questions, members? Councillor Dundas.
Hi, thanks, Lindsay. Thanks, Isabel, for that. Yeah, it's probably just more comments, and I know that the attendance is a wee bit concerning in Tain Royal Academy, but since Darren, the head there, has been putting some measures in place to improve that, and I'd like to think that we'll see an improvement in that moving forward. I know there's a lot of work being done on that at the moment. The individual reports that have come out for Hilton of Cadwell and the other schools, I would welcome a further meeting. Probably just what Morven May was saying, I'm concerned that when we've got cluster heads that we're actually not probably giving them the best support that we can. I note that the school that changed to a cluster head, the heads that have changed the cluster heads, it's quite significantly impacted the report of the school. And I was just wondering what interim reporting, if they say the area quality managers go in and they monitor any changes, but do we get any reports back, like did you notice anything halfway through that the school is needing more support, and what support went in to that school to support it? I think that's really important that that's flagged up, and what support are we going, how soon do we go in now and give the necessary support to the heads, teachers? Thanks.
Okay, if I can just respond to your comments there, Councillor Dundas. So yes, and as you know already, most likely the local authority takes all of the inspection findings very seriously and is working closely with the school leadership team following inspection, but obviously prior to inspection as well, just to make sure that all necessary steps are in place. Where there has been an inspection and aspects for improvement have been highlighted and recognised, it's important, that we obviously celebrate where the strengths have been identified, but really hone in on the areas for development and improvement. Every school will always have an improvement plan, so they've already identified their own school improvement priorities, and that's very much, again, in discussion with staff and with the education team. A school, the context and pressures within a school can change sometimes overnight in schools as well. It's just really variable based on context, based on staffing. There's a huge number of different factors that can feed into the outcome of an inspection. And I absolutely acknowledge your point around, it's a new cluster arrangement that we have there now. However, that is reflected in the fact that they also have a different staffing allocation, and that they have a principal teacher now as well working across the two schools. But again, it's probably more of a discussion that we could have with the head teacher at a local level to really unpick and understand, where things are now. Just to touch on also our factors that lead to the levels of support that we give to schools as an area team. So our schools previously were working under the Collaborative Improvement Framework, and moving forward we're reviewing through the Education Learning Improvement Plan, we're reviewing the kind of approach that we're taking to the tiered support offer from the officers, central officer team. So some schools you may find that have a universal, some may be more focused, and some may be on more intensive support, and that discussion is very much between the link area quality improvement manager and the head teacher with their team in the school to understand the reasons behind that, but more importantly to make sure that we are getting it right, that careful balance of support and challenge where challenge is needed, to make sure that we're maximising the successes and achievements for all of our schools and for all of our young people as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Isabel.
Thank you very much for that. And Councillor Ross.
Yes, thanks, Isabel. Actually, I'll have to get quicker on the hand, but Laura's more or less asked the same question as I was going to ask. I have briefly read the Hilton of Cadwell report, and I, like Councillor Dundas, just wondering, is there more support required there? I actually know the head teacher very well, and he is excellent. So I'm just wondering what's happened. And yeah, I think it would be good to have another meeting within our ward on that, and try to find out if there are ways that we can support. So I don't really have a question. You've more or less answered it as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, just to come back, just to comment, to say the head teacher, and the school have already developed an action plan, and will be in regular contact with the head teacher, just to make sure we're really focusing in on all of the areas that have been identified for improvement. Thank you, Councillor Ross.
So do we have any more questions, or are we happy to note the content of the report?
Happy.
Okay.
Happy.
Thank you so much for coming along today, Isabel. Really appreciate it. And hope you weren't too bombarded by all of our questions. So thank you very much. Members, with your agreement, I'd like to propose that we have a short comfort break for just over 10 minutes, and we reconvene at 12:25.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you.
I hope that was much needed. So we're moving on to item number 6, which is the Area Roads Capital Programme. And hopefully we've got Ian Moncrief with us. Fantastic. Afternoon, Ian.
Afternoon, councillors. Well, this report is the 26-27 area capital budget, the draft programme for the Black Isle and Easter Ross. And I'm asking members to note the report and then to approve the proposed schemes. It's similar in terms of the report from the previous years. I can go through the report in detail, or if members prefer, I can go straight to the scheme list. It's entirely up to yourselves.
Do members have a preference?
I think we could just go to the list.
Happy to go to the list.
I think the
Yeah.
scheme list is better. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Okay,
We'll
so
go for that then.
yeah. So
Sorry, Councillor Edmonston.
Yeah, I have a general question, but I'm quite happy to discuss the list, and then I'm not quite sure how it works with the E&I committee, and then obviously E&I minutes need to be approved by full council, which is until the end of March. So I'm not quite sure how that all works, Ian, but maybe you're about to explain.
Yes, councillor. what I have is I have a list of schemes. It's a multi-year list of schemes this year. It's not by any means fully comprehensive, but it is going to be at least 2, probably 3 to 4 years worth of work here. So the amount of money that is allocated to Ross and Cromarty for the capital allocation at the E&I committee, that's yet to be agreed. That's going to be at the February meeting. And then once I have that allocation, I'll be in a better position to fully update and brief members through the ward business meetings as we go on through the year. I am expecting around £3.3 million for Ross and Cromarty, and a very general figure would be around about £1 million for Black Isle and Easter Ross. But as I've said, once there's more clarity on that, I'll be able to provide more clarity on the schemes that I intend to construct this coming financial year. If we move on to the schemes, we have in Ward 6, we have the Struy, which was due to be surface dressed, I think it was 2 years ago, and it was deferred because if you remember, the stone chips significantly failed their specification testing, and then the second year it was deferred because we couldn't get the road space due to the Strathy wind farm. We see that scheme as being just over 3 kilometres. Ballintor, Loans of Tulloch, this road is completely failing, and we're looking at overlaying that for the whole road. Invergordon, we've got Delney Smithy Road, which is surface dress. Kirksheaf Farm Road in Tain, which will be an overlay. That's really just the last final section. And we have Cocktack Wood in Kilbolkie. And if I can just pause here a moment, councillors, the active travel scheme in Kilbolkie had a community benefit element to that. The contractor decided he was going to partially resurface Cocktack Wood as that community benefit. So we intend to accelerate Cocktack Wood surfacing to do the remainder at the same time. That is if the scheme gets your approval. I've looked at Lower Pitcairn Road at Meikle Riney. I've split that up onto 3 different sections. It is pretty poor. We're looking at overlays for that. Similarly, Goldenfield Avenue, the junction including Gowan Bray is very poor. That's going to be an inlay. The Tay Blair Road, 650 odd metres and needing an overlay. Pretty much the whole of Belfield in North Keswick, waiting on the programme for a good number of years. Achondooney Road, again, the whole road needing an overlay. That's just gone beyond the end of its life. Ballinroig Road, that's at Cullen. That's needing surface dressing. Caplick Road. The financial year. It's in next year's programme, but we may get it out at the end of this year. Schemes that are being put to tender just now have start dates around about March time. So it may get done this year. If not, we're looking at next year. Again, there's another section at Ballinroig Road. Colony Wood, this is up by the section we did as you come off the top of the Fairy Glen. You come off and you go along to, oh, apologies, councillors, I've forgotten the section of road. We did a section earlier this year. This is probably one of the worst roads. It's completely broken up, but I believe there's only 2 or 3 houses at the end. You can see that that's quite a high tariff, if you like. Fal Station Road, this is running from just at the cafe next to the roundabout up to the Back Everton Road. We've got 350 metres. That's north of the railway level crossing. The road's lost its profile and really needs some significant work done to it. Ballinroig Road, again, another section. Craigton Road, patching required for that. Again, more sections for Ballinroig Road. School Road in Fern, this was an interesting one. The road is in a sag curve and it leads to significant drainage issues. We're going to have to improve the drainage and then resurface the road. Railway Bridge to Morrison Supermarket at Alness. We have that in for an inlay. The Ethy Road, this has been split up into several sections to try to get the best value for money, and you'll see these coming up a little bit further down. The Both Road, again, has been split up into different sections. You see that we've got something like 120 metres to begin with. Another 210 metres on the Ethy Road. Both Road at 60. Ethy's 190 metres. Another 100 metres on the Both Road. And you can see how this progresses as we go down. A big section, 525 metres on the Ethy Road. That was at Hopefield. There just wasn't one section that we could subdivide. It just had to come out. More sections on the Both Road and Ethy Roads. We're looking at 30, 40, and then 65, and then another big section on the Ethy Road at 450 metres. And that's the end of the programme. I would be happy to come back throughout the year, councillors, to keep you updated through the ward business meetings on the progress and to review the priority list of schemes. And I'd be pleased to take any questions.
Thank you, Ian. I can see that this is a huge amount of work. So is my understanding correct of this list that this is not a ward by ward list? This is the absolute urgency of the requirement for these roads to be repaired in that order of worst to best. Is that what this is?
Pretty much so. What I tried to do was the schemes that hadn't been progressed for one reason or another took precedent. and then I tried to pick out the worst schemes in each of the wards, so that we started at Ward 6, 7, moved on to 9, and then returned to 6 again. But I also had to try to balance that, because some schemes were very small and other schemes quite large. So I tried to have a balanced approach. But the fundamental basis is that those roads are pretty much at their end of their lives and are needing work.
Okay. Now, the one thing that struck me about this plan, as opposed to previous years, is I'm not seeing a red line. And that feels very strange, Ian, because we're very used to the red line. Where do you realistically see us being able to get to within the first year?
Yes, Councillor, I'm quite used to a red line as well. If you, I can come back and confirm that exactly where I think we'll end up, and I can maybe give you a quite an accurate figure after those budgets are confirmed.
Yes, of course.
At the February committee. As things stand just now, I'm just currently loading up a spreadsheet. Yeah, I'll if it's okay, can I come back to you, councillors, with where I think we'll get to.
Yes, there's absolutely no rush on that. That was me just surmising. The last one that I was going to ask you about very quickly is that for number 5, Kilbokie Bridgeview, formerly Cocktatwood, I'm not aware of that scheme changing name. Just I thought it was still called Cocktatwood.
Yes, councillors, that's what I've always known it as, Cocktatwood. But when I prepare my programme, I check that each road is actually adopted. It's very easy just to assume it's adopted, and to avoid spending council money on a private road, I always double check. And it was at that point that I realised that it was it had apparently changed its name. So I just wanted to be clear in case I didn't realise it had changed.
The signs at the end of the road definitely say Cocktatwood.
Yes, that's what I've always known it as. But
yes. Okay, I will open it up now. Councillor Ramsey.
Thanks for that, Ian. It was, and sorry for my ignorance, it's just obviously, and I know I keep using the I'm just new excuse, but it's just getting my head around how things work and stuff. So and I know Lindsay had asked about the time scale, but it's probably about in the same question. Is this like, does each of these jobs, do you do one job and then move on to the next and then on to the next, or and do you have like a rough idea how long each thing takes, or does it depend on this, like obviously the size and the meterage and stuff? Have you got I suppose a plan of that yet, or will this become after? Thank you.
At this stage, no, that's too detailed, councillor. What we do have is in general, the first operation we do, probably starting in the 1st of April, is patching. When we surface dress the road, that's where we spread a water oil emulsion onto the road, and then spread chips, stone chips, and then roll them in. We need to prepare the road surface beforehand, so any potholes would be patched before we surface dress. The emulsion and the surface dressing acts as a glue to hold the chips in place. Now, the surface dressing can only really take place between probably maybe the start of May and I would say maybe the end of July. We can extend it into August a little bit, but the weight of the traffic pushes those stone chips not just into the glue, but into the road below it, and that's what permanently holds them on. And what we've seen is that if there isn't enough traffic going over it before winter starts, then the frost gets into it, and you typically see the actual stones stripping off the road come maybe March, April time. So after we do the patching, we would then be doing the surface dressing over the best part of the summer, and then we would move on to the overlays. We will be using contractors, and contractors aren't tied to the same seasonal restrictions. So any work that we're going to issue to contractors will probably be issued earlier on. Typically, when we do an overlay, it's in a rural area, and we simply lift the surface of the road by typically 40 mil of new tar. But when you're in an urban environment, you've got curbs, and you've maybe got air bricks, you've got level crossings, driveways, and so on. So you have to keep the new road surface the same as the old road surface in terms of level. And that means we have to plane out the road before we inlay it to the same level. Those jobs will probably be going to contractors as they're more tricky. We need to be absolutely spot on with the levels. So I hope that gives a potted summary of our operations and how that impacts on the timescales.
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Atkin.
Just a quick question that I know the community will want me to ask. I'm assuming, Ian, that Mount Eagle Road was costed last year because it was top of our list, and obviously it's a key strategic road. Is that correct? So hence it not being on this list because it's kind of, you know, financed. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's being
perfect. I don't know. That's it. I've got my answer.
Yeah, no, it should be. I can't remember whether it's out for pricing or we've received a quote back. No. As things stand, the lead-in times are, if they're issued now, then the lead-in times are typically February. Sorry, lead-in times are typically March before we can get on site.
Yeah, and then your comments on the changes can be adaptations at ward level and priorities, etc. We can have a discussion on this at ward level on the, you know,
yes,
red lines or not, or how many years, etc. So great, thanks ever so much.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks for all the work on the costings and stuff and everything as well. It's very helpful.
And not at all.
Councillor Dundas.
Yeah, just a financial question on the Struy Road when the works didn't get done last year, Ian. They're transferred to this year. Did we spend that budget last year, and is it coming back out of the budget this year? What happened to the money?
Yeah, the money went back into the pot for Ross and Cromarty, and it was spent, so it's coming out of this year's budget.
Okay, but we did spend it all last year. Yeah.
We still have to get the exact figures back in. Any underspends or overspends have to be accounted for. So if you remember, Councillor, we went through a phased. We introduced additional schemes in a phased approach.
Yeah, at the end there, remember that.
At the end, yeah. And it's the same process with this year. The costs are slightly inflated so that we're not going to run out of cash.
Okay, that's fine. Thanks, Ian.
Councillor Edmondson.
Thank you. Councillor Dundas essentially asked the same question that I was going to ask. Do you produce inspection figures? The Roads Authority are meant to inspect the roads depending on their classification on for certain periods, so like once a year or once every 3 months or whatever. Do we have figures for that? And I wondered maybe if I could, if nobody else is interested, if we could have an answer to that really. And I just say as a general comment, I mean, there are roads very, very, very long way down this list where people are telling me I can't take my car up there. It is so bad. And that is an extremely worrying thing to hear. That's, yeah.
Just coming back to the first point there, Councillor Edmondson. We don't actually have a report, but I can go through what roads have been inspected this year, and I can perhaps get back to you if that's okay.
Sorry, Chair. Ian, let's have a conversation sometime during the week about that rather than burdening you with too much work.
Okay, Councillor Edmondson. And the second issue with the roads that are really bad, you'll remember that we had the road of the back road up to Kilbin at the start of last financial year that we had to step in and repair because there was the school taxi couldn't get up to pick up the child. We do have roads that are failing really badly, and I am happy to come back to ward business meeting, perhaps ward 6, 7 and 9 in one go, and look at are there any roads that are particularly bad. I mean, we don't have any off-road 4x4 vehicles. We use typically a Vauxhall combi van. So if we can't get up with a combi van, then that's a pretty severe test, you know. And I would suggest that if there are any particular roads in that state, then we can discuss the priorities at a ward business meeting.
Thank you, Ian.
Brilliant, thank you. Councillor Cross, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Ian, for all this information you've given us. It really indicates the size of the challenge that you have with the state of our roads. I would like to ask, I hope I'm asking it in the right context and at the right time, but I think some of the detail of what you've expressed here is subject to confirmation of budgets. And my question really is, are we as a council as a whole budgeting enough to keep up with the rate of deterioration across the board of our roads, or are we actually falling further behind in terms of expected rate of deterioration or lifespan of roads? Are we actually tackling enough? I appreciate the effort that you're putting in, but this is really a question about the overall budgeting aspect that the council provides. So thank you for that opportunity.
Yeah. Whilst I don't have any figures to prove that argument one way or another, Councillor Crofts, I can say anecdotally that my teams across all the wards in Ross and Cromarty are working flat out, and I think it's fair to say that the roads are continuously getting worse. Now, I think that indicates that we are not keeping up with repairs.
Thank you. I don't wish to embarrass you in any way at all, because I think you're doing a fantastic job. but I suspect you're not being given adequate resources. But I appreciate maybe the delicacy of the question, but thank you for that response.
Councillor Ross.
Yes, thank you, Ian, for this. And I'm going to also say thank you to you and the team for the work that's gone down in the village here at the moment. I actually took an old lady home last night who lives in Burnside, and she is just absolutely thrilled that she can get up and down her road now. So thank you very much for that. A question I was going to ask was, I didn't see that Rovers Crescent was on the list at all, but I can pop that on an email to you. I've already mentioned it to you a few times, so I'll mention it again to you, Ian. And when you said there's 1 million for the Black Isle and Easter Ross, is that over the 3 years, Ian, or is that just for this coming year?
Yeah, first of all, I think you had emailed me about Rovers Crescent, and it was too late to put it into the committee report, but it is on the bottom of my spreadsheet, and it's perhaps something that we can discuss at a ward business meeting. The £1 million was a ballpark estimate of what I might get after the E&I February committee. And I think that's in the right, roughly the right amount. Yeah.
And is that's for this coming year?
Yes, just for this year.
Yeah, thanks. That's what I wanted to know. That's lovely. Thank you, Ian.
Thank you. Right, Councillor Coghill.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Ian, for the report, and pass on personal thanks to your roads team for doing an exemplary job for the resources you have available to you. I think we all appreciate that you do everything you can, and your team. I just did a quick tot up as we were chatting there. £1 million, if that's indeed what you're successful in getting, it'll take us down to, I think, number 20, or priority list number 20. So that'll give us a steer as to how far we might get this year. I think Councillor Cross asked about whether we're keeping up with the repairs, but I think the length of the list of jobs that need done compared with what we're likely to have funding for probably answers that question adequately. Was all probably separate to this paper, but we hear the new thermal repair system is getting rolled out, and I think I've expressed a desire to see that in action, to see how it actually works. So I think that's an outstanding one for us to get a look at some point. We've got really hopeful of that technology as give us a longer term repairs. But thanks.
Yeah, I thought there had been a demonstration organised, Councillor Coghill. Would you?
Well, I've missed it if there was one.
Well, we still have them, so I'll arrange a second one. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
And Councillor McCallum.
Thank you very much, and thank you so much, Ian, for all the work in this. It's absolutely tremendous. I just had two quick questions. In terms of Cocked Hat Woods, it's fantastic you got developer contributions for that. It's amazing because that road is in such a dire strait. Do you know roughly a time frame for when that might be getting fixed? I don't expect you to know that off the top of your head, but if you could let us know maybe in an email over the next week, that'd be really helpful. And I was curious if you knew or could explain to us how that £1 million is potentially going to be divided between the wards. That would also be really helpful to know. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor. I typically, as I said earlier, I take the schemes that weren't completed the previous year, and then we try to go through each of the schemes, looking at which ones are maybe the worst, and then picking out the worst in Ward 6, then the next worst in Ward 7, and the worst in Ward 9, and repeating that as we come, if you like, down from the worst schemes to the middling schemes, and then to the schemes that aren't quite so bad. So it's sort of done in turn. It accounts for the different wards, but I also have to balance that, because if I pull a Ward 6 scheme at 50k, and then a Ward 7 scheme at 50k, and then a Ward 9 scheme at 350k, I have to try to balance that out. And I also try to look at the overall picture to make sure that the overall percentage spend in each ward correlates with the percentage road length. There isn't a particularly right answer or a particularly wrong answer in how to do this. It's just trying to reconcile the spend in the Black Isle, Easter Ross is split up to try and tackle the worst roads, but also trying to reflect the amount of road network the different wards have.
Thank you, that's really helpful. I just wanted to get clarity in my head because I had a weak query, but that was really helpful, so thank you for that. And yeah, if you could provide us with an update on time frame for Cocktail Woods at some point, that'd be really helpful. Thanks very much for your insights, Ian.
Thank you very much, Ian. So, members, are we happy to approve the rolling programme and note the rolling programme to be required to be updated once the Scottish Road Maintenance Condition Survey has been received and considered, and to note that the area budgets will be available after February 2026 in E&I Committee? Are we happy with that?
Yeah.
Happy to approve.
Happy.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for hanging out with us today, Ian. I know it's been a bit of a long week to get here, so thank you.
Not at all. Thanks very much, councillors. Bye-bye.
Bye for now.
Bye.
So that brings us very neatly on to the housing repairs. I think we've got Lee Marchie with us, do we?
Yep, thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, members. Yeah, I'm Lee Markey, Housing Investment Officer, and I'm here today to present the housing repairs and capital report for Black Isle and Easter Ross, and that's covering the period the 1st of April 2025 to the 31st of December 2025. I'm not going to read the report word for word, but will refer members to specific sections and tables within it, if that's okay. And I'll go straight into repairs performance. So if I can direct members to section 6.3 in table 1, this shows the average time taken to complete emergency repairs. Across the area, emergency repairs remain well within our 12-hour target, showing the area is below the Highland-wide performance, averaging 4.2 hours for Q3. As noted in section 6.4, emergency repairs remain a priority and performance continued to be strong. Going on to non-emergency repairs, section 6.6 and table 2. This shows the average completion times are good for non-emergency repairs as they remain below the 8.9 day target across the areas. If I can then refer members to section 7 and table 3 in section 7.2, which shows the average relet times. Average relet times for void properties within the area has continued to exceed the target time of 55.6 days. This performance continues to be affected by measures introduced to reduce subcontractor expenditure. Additionally, major energy efficiency refurbishment works have contributed to extended relet periods, and despite ongoing mitigation efforts, short-term performance is expected to remain below target as these changes continue to take effect. Going into the capital investment programme in section 8, sections 8.1 and 8.2 outline the 22 to 27 capital investment programme and current delivery status, where we continue to support key areas of planned investment. The table in section 2 reflects current programme delivery, which varies in work types across the contracts. The capital budget for this period is now largely committed, and as we near the end of the current 5-year capital programme. That links into the energy efficiency and external funding in section 8.3. Our housing investment team has worked closely with the climate change and energy team throughout 25 to 26 to identify and access external funding opportunities aimed at securing fully funded measures across the Highlands. This collaborative approach has been central to the success of the programme to date. And through Eco4 funding, 90 properties across Black Isle and Easter Ross have received fully funded energy efficiency measures, which is great. This external investment has helped offset pressures on the local planned capital budgets. In addition to this, if we go into section 8.4, local teams continue to deliver the one-off capital works to address component failures. And in section 8.5, it notes delays to environmental capital projects due to capacity pressures, with a recommendation to reprofile funding where required. And then finishing off at Appendix 1, that provides a summary of delivery outputs to date, demonstrating the scale of works delivered. Repairs performance remains strong, capital investment delivery is progressing well, and relet times, well below target, are understood and linked to a small amount of high invested properties where the local teams are working hard to reduce these relet times. Members are asked to note the contents of the report, and I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Lee. And it is a very interesting and comprehensive report. And it is interesting seeing that there is actually such disparity between how long the repairs are taking in Black Isle to Cromarty Firth to Tain and Easter Ross. What I was wondering is, you know, there does appear to be a bit of a trend that the time to relet a property is increasing somewhat. Do you know why that might be?
So, I mean, having a look at some of the figures there, and I could try and provide a bit more comprehensive information, maybe at our business meeting if required. But there is so for example, the Black Isle, the number of houses within that compared to the number of relets, if one property takes a significant period of time, that will knock off the figures quite significantly. So for example, if that property was to be removed, you'd find that from the stats, you would find that the figures would be a lot lower. So there is the odd property that is highly invested. It does take a considerable period of time. We're looking at, obviously, it's subject to resource contractor availability when we do utilise contractors, and our internal resource as well. So, and obviously the level of works required to do these type of works. So yeah, that's probably it's just the main reasons there for that that sort of high number there above the average time.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Right, Councillor Ross.
Yeah, thank you for this report. Gosh, I can't remember the officer's name, sorry. Who? The officer? Lee. Yes. Sorry, Lee. It's an age thing, Lee, so don't worry. I was listening to a programme the other night regarding the cladding. I know an awful lot of our buildings now have had the new ECO4 cladding, and the programme was about it not being done properly by contractors and it was causing mould. Are we getting any feedback from any of the homes that have been done over the last 2 or 3 years in a negative way, or have we used the right contractors, really? That's what I'm asking. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. In terms of cladding, yeah, I'm aware of that report also. No, we are pretty robust in ensuring that the checks are conducted in line with that, and there is robust checks when works are ongoing as well to ensure that the cladding is done appropriately and to standard. I haven't had any reports directly in relation to any mould or damp being caused off the back of external cladding installation. But if there is any reports that anybody's aware of, then we would need to be brought to our attention so we can take appropriate action. But as I say, we're using contractors, we are assessing that, and it's all checked. And yeah, I've got no reports to feedback on to date.
That's good, Lee. Thanks very much for that. I was just a wee bit concerned. Thanks.
Councillor Dundas.
Yeah, thanks, Lee. I've just got a couple of questions. As far as the relets and the amount of time the relets, because we're not using subcontractors, has the financial difference been worked out between what we're losing in rents and council tax been taken into consideration? Would we be just as well carrying on using subcontractors to get them relet so that we've got income? And then the other question that I noted in the report was regarding the retrofit in Ballantour, that there was funding left and shifted to somewhere else. I wondered why that wasn't used to do more houses, and what stage we're at with any applications to complete the other houses in that housing scheme, because it's definitely created a split within the housing scheme for those who got their houses done and those who didn't, and it's just wondered if we've got any more further progress to try and ease that relationships in the housing scheme.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Dundas. So in relation to the relets, I haven't got exact figures of the difference between the subcontractor costs and our internal resource costs. I believe this question is that there's been similar questions asked previously, and that we're kind of working that we can bring maybe to Ward Business Meeting a bit more kind of in-depth figures, so that will hopefully be able to answer that question for you in the future. In terms of the retrofits, yeah, it's totally take on board your the point there is that obviously based on the retrofit works, we are limited in funding. We are seeking, we have looked into alternative funding off the back of, for example, the Eco4 funding that has been subsequently pulled at the moment. The D2C project, which is the one that was it's slightly different, but that was energy efficiency measures. That's kind of on pause, but that's going to continue. But in terms of retrofits, we are looking and reviewing our position. We're going to look at alternative funding streams where practically possible. And I do take on board the point that maybe like some properties are getting that and others are not. And the challenge that we face is we are limited in the budget that we have. We've got to prioritise based on the property types and trying to meet our targets in terms of EISH and meeting like Band C, for example, in terms of the energy performance certificate for that property. So that's where it becomes a bit challenging, because we are limited. We've got a high number of properties that require investment in the key areas. But overall, I think it's been a good project. But yeah, we'd like to roll it out more, but it's subject to external factors there. So again, we're working on that, and we're just trying to see what is available so we can deliver these type of measures going forward to other properties. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, do you know if there are any current applications in at the moment, or is that something that the team are still looking for, or are we in a positive place that we're in a position to be current application?
So in terms of that, they're working on, it kind of sits, there's two different parts to this in house investment, so it sits on our side there. So they're currently working on net zero application there. So we are looking at that overall. Specific to Black Isle and Easter Ross, I would need to get back to you on that as well.
Okay, that'd be good if you could. Thanks.
No
Thanks,
problem.
Lee.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Cockle.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Lee, for the report. It's really helpful, clear figures. Just on the repairs to reduce that relet time, I presume we're just short on trades internally to effect quicker repairs are we paying enough? I don't know what the barrier is for having for our internal teams. And on the upgrades, whilst we welcome the good news story of the 90 homes in Ballantour being done, that represents, I think, 4.4% of the housing stock within this committee area. I did hear what you said about applying for funding elsewhere as and when that becomes available. Just want to be, I suppose, assured that we've got projects that are shovel ready, so that we can apply and act upon funding as and when it becomes available. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Coghill. Yeah, so in terms of just going with regards to trade, yeah, it's always been a challenge, and it's across not just ourselves, but across I would say quite like upon benchmarking in other local authorities. There's a similar trend there in terms of having the internal resource. We are obviously challenged in terms of the Highlands, in terms of geographically and that as well. So that can pose a bit of strain on trying to recoup or trying to kind of recruit, should I say, internal resource to assist us with kind of be able to deliver these works. Going on to the low percentage of properties that we've achieved. Yeah, it appears that it's a low percentage, but we've obviously got a Highland-wide approach to take in terms of the investment in the funding streams as well. And funding streams are kind of dictated by the governments. So we're kind of looking at that. We're kind of trying to work with them as close as we can, and where we can kind of tap into that funding, we will do our utmost best, because it allows us to deliver more effectively, because we are limited on our internal budgets. So hopefully that helps and answers your question there as well.
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Edmonston.
Thank you. Thank you for the report as well. I was going to ask, I just wanted to explore a bit more about what Councillor Dundas was saying, because it was a similar question that I raised last year and was raised again. And it's quite apparent that we haven't done any cost benefit analysis, or we have no sort of triage to identify when a repair, when it actually more cost effective for the council to get a subcontractor in and get people housed. It's not even about the rent anymore. It's about getting people housed. So if there's another month that they can get housed, that is the most thing. That's what we're up to. That's why we want small, turnaround times, because we want people living in their new homes rather than in temporary accommodation. So I just urge that we become better about identifying when actually, to get this thing turned around quicker, we could get a subcontractor to do the work because our in-house team is bigger on, doing other stuff, and then we can get people housed and we can get our average down. So that's that. And I think as far as paragraph 6.6, which is about the non-emergency repairs, I quite understand that you're below the benchmark, but I'm just wondering why Cromarty Firth is consistently, the average is consistently higher than the other wards in the business area, the area. Is there any reason for that, Lee? You could perhaps explain.
Yeah, Councillor Edmondson, so just going straight on to your point there about the number of houses, the non-emergency repairs. Looking at that, I would put that down to the number of houses within the area as well. So you've got to look at that. There's 1,528. So obviously there's a lot more properties to get round. So I would say, while it's higher than other two, it's fairly consistent based on the data there as well.
Can I just say that I'm happy to take the issue of the relet times to the office, to senior officers, because obviously I'm Vice Chair of Housing Property and do meet them over a weekly meeting for some kind of explanation, some very good points around that. And my second point is I'm really apologising, but I have got a 1:30 meeting and my camera isn't working again, so, that I can't really miss. Just putting that to the chair.
Yeah,
So I
you're
might
more
have
than
to duck
welcome
out
to.
shortly.
Yep. Okay.
If I duck
but you
out,
don't
I
have
could
any
just.
questions to scrutinise on the paper in committee?
No, I'm just saying that I've listened to the points made, and I will take the need for that analysis back to senior officers at one of my weekly housing property meetings with them.
Thank you. Okay, if we have no further questions on this, are we happy to note the contents of the report? Fantastic. And I believe you're staying with us, Lee, for the garage rents.
Yes, I am. Yeah, so
fantastic.
I can just go straight on to that if that's okay.
Absolutely, that would be great.
Okay, you have to excuse me because I've got a few screens open today, so I'll just get the first one.
We're keeping you on your toes.
Yeah. Okay, so members, I've got this report. So I've got the garage rents report for the housing revenue account 26 to 27. So this report sets out garage and garage site rent levels for the housing revenue account and seeks agreement on garage and garage site rent levels for the Black Isle and Easter Ross areas. There are a total of 359 garages across wards 6, 7 and 9, and members are being asked to consider rent increase options of 8%, 9% or 10%, which is consistent with the options consulted on for council house rent increases. This is set out in section 7.2 and shows the variations. So worth noting that any net additional rent income from garage and garage sites generated by a rent increase would also be applied as an increase in the area repairs budget for garages and garages sites. Members are therefore invited to agree the level of rent increase to apply for the coming financial year. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Now, I do remember from times gone past that we do have a number of voids across the area, whether it be, you know, I know there's a large amount in Ward 6. I was going to say, just for members' awareness as well, where it says Ward 11 in the papers, I do believe it is actually referring to Ward 9, just to make you aware of that. But also, so are you saying, just so that I have absolute clarity on this, that if we maximise rents on the garages, that additional income would directly go to garage voids in our area perhaps and bring them up to scratch where they could be relet? Would that be an accurate thing to say?
Yeah, well, as 7.3 says, it can any net additional rent income from garages and garage sites generated by a rent increase would also be applied as an increase in the area repairs budget for garages and garage sites. So that refers to putting it back in to spend on the garages within the area.
So that additional revenue generated locally would stay locally. We wouldn't be necessarily subsidising another area which perhaps went for a lower garage rent. And obviously the more garages that are up to scratch, the more income that's generated.
So just for clarity, I'd probably prefer just to clarify that out with this as well, just to double check, because I mean I'm looking at, unfortunately I never generated the report. I'm presenting the report and I'm going by the word in there. No, it appears that yes, it would go locally to that area to spend on the garages, because that would, that's why we're asking obviously for the increase to be able to invest back into the garages to ensure that they're up to standard, etc. But I'm happy to get a bit more clarity if you would like on that.
So I was going to say, I think this might be worth a bit of a discussion amongst us, because obviously the big thing that we did last year with the garage rents was that we standardised them across the 3 wards, which I think was a sensible thing to do. and it's now a case. So basically, we're not going to be looking at each ward. I think we should look at a rent increase across the board again, so as we remain on the same level. It's basically how much of an impact do we want to make on garage rents? Do we want to increase them to a level where there's possibly some additional revenue to bring some of these void garages back into use? Or do we want to keep the costs low across the board? I'm quite willing to hear all of your opinions, and we can even go to a vote on this. I have, and see what is worth doing. So, first of all, I'll go to Councillor Ross.
Thanks, Lindsay. Thanks, Lee. Well, when I was looking at it, I mean, my problem with the garages, Lindsay, is nowadays our cars are much bigger. You drive a car into the garage, you can't even get out your car then. So it's not as if the garages are really functional for today's vehicles. Although I'm sure there are some who are using their garages, they may have smaller cars. So I would be reluctant to put a big increase. Well, say the 9 or 10%. But I think the way things are, probably 8% is something that I would consider. Sorry, Marie. Hold on.
Okay, I tell you what, while she's busy there, why don't we move on to Councillor Dundas?
Yeah, I was just at a community council meeting actually regarding, and somebody took up the garages. There's an area that there's 3 or 4 garages and they're all in pretty bad repair, and it would be more useful for them to remove the garages completely so that they have plenty of room for parking cars just beside the housing scheme, because the scheme's been becoming so congested. Is that something that housing would consider, taking away the garages that aren't being used and that are in such poor repair, so that the local community can make more use of the space for parking and decongesting the housing scheme?
Lee, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, so I know that parking is at a premium, and it's yeah, and I think in terms of that, if the garages are not being maybe utilised and they are kind of smaller, etc., it's a fair comment to make in relation to providing parking. I don't know the specific area in question, but obviously there's a number of factors to take into consideration. The ground that's there, the spacing in terms of being able to get cars in and out. Yes, we're saying that cars can get in and out at the moment, but I would suspect that we'd need to probably do a bit of a feasibility study on that to determine that. But it's something that I could bring to the seniors.
I think there's also the consideration as well, Lee, that if we have such a high number of void garages, would that land be better used as housing land, and actually the garages go and housing built? I don't know. I suppose it depends on the layout, the size, the amount of land, all that kind of stuff. But if the garages are sitting void with no roofs or whatever, then that's also another consideration. Councillor Coghill, I'll take you in next.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks again, Lee, for presenting this report. Yeah, a few questions. So I'm just wondering what outstanding demand we have for garages. So if there's a latent demand for the voids that we have got, then that'd be helpful to know. Or is there a lack of demand and thereby we could use that land area for other uses, parking, other housing? The proposed increases that are presented here, I'm always uncomfortable about anything that's an increase over and above inflation. You know, that's a standstill. We agreed a across the board rate last year, so I'm just a little, I suppose, alarmed that none of the rates presented are current inflation. It's all above. So even if I'm going to suggest that we used the lower of those threes, it's still over and above what inflation is. So, you know, that's, I feel uncomfortable about that even being presented to us in that manner. So just like, hopefully you can take that back. I got myself a bit annoyed there, so and I've lost my thread, so I'll shut up in the meantime.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Crockwell. In terms of outstanding demand, I can't comment exactly for the area, but usually there'd be obviously a list. People would go on that list, and when the when a garage is void, they'd maybe make contact. So I could kind of liaise with the local team and get back to you in terms of what kind of demands being presented, because yes, that would then fall into obviously the usage for that area, if potential utilisation elsewhere, if a feasibility was conducted in terms of using it for something more than garages or garage sites. So I can certainly look into that. In terms of the like above inflation figures and that, so I mean generally the council garages are a kind of quite a lower rent, but I do take on board that they don't fit your standard car anymore. So, but they are lower compared to if we was if somebody was to utilise a garage in a commercial basis, for example. So, yeah, I take on board the points there, and I can feed that back as well.
Fantastic. Right, Councillor Edmondson.
Thank you, Chair. If we were to have 100% occupancy, we'd be raising an extra 45k in Ward 6. And I think it's actually critical for us to baking, you know, rather than the 17,000 that was predicted with a 10% rent increase. So I want to know more about these voids. I mean, are they void because there aren't any punters there willing to take them on, or use them, or are they void because they're falling down? And I think this is actually critical to the decisions that we're making. Is it better for us to actually looking at making the voids, promoting them if there's nobody there out to buy them, or refurbishing them? But without the information about why they're void, I think it's quite difficult for us to make a decision. I certainly wouldn't support anything, like the levels of rent increase, especially when I think one of the wards, and I can't remember the figures, I didn't look it up, when we were getting it into line, actually had quite a, I think it was Ward 9, was it, that actually had quite a large increase to reach the levels of other wards. I might have got that wrong. I'm only working from memory, Chair. So I think that's also quite a critical thing. These voids are an issue. Until I know what the reason is, the reason why they're void is it just purely because they're falling down, or they're not usable?
Yeah, again, Councillor Edmondson, just to come in there, I can really go behind the scenes and analyse that data and get back to you at a ward business meeting, or bring the relevant officer in with that to have a discussion about that. As I say, it's clear from the points raised there that we need to look into the demand and the voids that are there at the moment, and we can get back to you hopefully with a bit more of a detailed answer.
Councillor McCallum.
Thank you. I think John, Councillor Edmondson has raised a really good point there. I think it would be beneficial to have a deeper dive into that. Just for your reference, Councillor Edmondson, it was Ward 6 and 7 that saw a 9% increase to bring it up to the same level as the Black Isle, which saw a 5.6 increase, so that we were all in the same tier. I think because of that, because we had such a big increase last year for Ward 6 and 7 in particular, I wouldn't be comfortable going with 10%. Personally, I'm looking more towards the 9% because that will give us scope to be able to continue improvements and hopefully bring some of the void garages back into use, but it's not going to overwhelm the current occupants and tenants of those garages. And I'm very conscious that there's going to be a lot more expenses coming for those occupants very soon. So to me, 9% is what I'd be most comfortable with, but that's my own personal view on it. Thank you.
No, thank you. That's really useful, Councillor McCallum. Do appreciate it. So I think from what I've heard from everybody, sorry, excuse me, would it be fair to say, just by nods of heads, that we are ruling out the 10%? Okay, thank you for that. Would you prefer to go to a vote on whether it be 8% or 9%? Do we think that might be the fairest way? Okay. Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Edmondson.
Yeah, I mean, now I've got the figures from Councillor McCallum. Thank you very much, Councillor. I'm really concerned. I mean, that's basically an 18% increase for, Ward 6 and 7 2 years, even at the lower end of the scale. I think that's quite a big jump. So I don't know. I would fight. I would then ask for a 5% increase. Then I think I don't really even want to contemplate 8 and 9, 10. I think it's far too high for the wards in 6 and 7. All in one go, and 5% is above inflation as well.
Can I ask you then, Lee? Is obviously we've got 8, 9, and 10% as the calculations which have been offered. I'm assuming that's because that's what's in line with what was the potential council house rises. Yes.
Yes, sorry. I mean, yeah. So as you quite rightly says, it's the garage, because they've all been different across the areas previously. That then there was obviously a general kind of decision to try and get them all in line. So that would then, some would go higher than others. So this is being requested across all areas, the same type of rise, just going in line with the rent increases. So where there's maybe been that increases just now, obviously previous garage tenants would have benefited for the lower costs previously. So they would have benefited from that for a period of time, and then we were just going in line with the rest of the Highland area. So, I appreciate all the comments there. We've got the 8, 9, 10% that's been presented on the report in line with the consultation on the rent increases.
I mean, the other thing that I'm very acutely aware of is that if you were to compare the price of a garage rent, even for the non-council tenants paying, the £15 a week, it's still incredibly cheap compared to buying storage. And if you were to go to one of the storage companies, with the lockups, you're looking at £50, £60, £70 a week. So, if people are even just using the garages as a storage facility, then there is still, regardless of which option we choose today, a significant saving on that of commercial storage. So that is something that is also worth just having in the mix of thoughts as we go into the vote as well. I'll go to you next, Councillor Dundas.
Yeah, I was just thinking about John's 5%, and I was just thinking, would that give us enough money to actually improve any of our garages? Then does it give us a scope to get these voids up to standard? That would possibly impact that. And I suppose when Ward 6 and 7 made that decision last year, we were almost going to be at this position anyway this year, that we were going to have the biggest increase over the last 2 years, but we had to kind of bring it up to the same sort of level. And I would just say Lindsay's made a good point. If we're paying for storage, it's substantially more than what, and I think most of the garages probably are being used for storage rather than cars. So yeah, it's just that balance. If we went as low as 5, would we have enough money to do any improvements?
Thank you, Councillor Dundas. I think that was really good points. Councillor Coghill.
Thanks, Chair, for letting me back in. Yeah, I've noted in, I think it was and E&I that the garage rents in other areas outside our area, Inverness and Nairn, were significantly lower. Picking out figures like £9 a week. So whilst we're looking to get parity across the Black Isle, there are other areas where people are enjoying the same service for significantly less. So I don't want to be leading the game in terms of rents.
Just to make you aware, to let you know, it does say in 6.4 that the average garage rent Highland wide is £11.17 a week, and I'm assuming that's for council tenants.
Yeah, okay. I think comparing with commercial storage, I think it's apples and pears. I think probably most garages that are used are for storage, and it is a lower cost storage, a lower quality storage as well. They tend to be damp compared with the commercial storage, which is generally pretty high quality. So it's different animals, I think, and those that are using council garages for storage tend to be on the lower income scale as well. They probably would never contemplate commercial storage because of the prices. So just don't want to cut people off from a service that is essential to them, or questionable whether it's essential, but it's available to them. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Fiona, were you wanting to come in there for a second?
Thanks, Chair. There's a couple of things. First of all, if you're going to have a vote, there will need to be a sort of motion seconded and an amendment seconded. So if you're going to go for different rents, I sort of wanted to ask Lee, and I have quickly emailed Brian to see if he can join us, Brian Cameron, because I don't know from the report whether 5% is a competent thing for us to decide. I don't know, Lee, do you know that? Because it's not in the report, and I don't know if there are reasons why it needs to be a minimum of 8%. And I think we need to take advice. And at the moment, without knowing that, if you wanted to go for less than 8%, I'm wondering whether a deferral would be better. We have checked for another area committee, and we know that it's not I don't know what the wording is, it's not a statutory thing, but it doesn't have to be decided before the end of the financial year, because another area committee has deferred a decision on it. Or we could take a short adjournment and take advice on that. Unless, or Lee, do you know if 5% is competent or not, if there's a reason why it needs to be?
Yeah, so I think we would definitely need to take advice on that, because I'm presenting the report based on the 8,
Sure.
9, 10%. So
Yeah, I mean, my personal viewpoint is that that we agreed across the that we're not looking at 10%, and I personally think going to a vote with an 8 or a 9 is probably the fairest way to settle this. And I think that you are right, Fiona, that there is going to be reasons why we've been presented with 8, 9 and 10. And at the end of the day, the garages do have to meet their costs.
Exactly, yeah. I don't want to agree for the committee to agree a 5% if there's a reason why that can't happen.
Okay, I'll very quickly, just while we're waiting for some advice to come back then, Councillor Edmondson.
I think given the discussions about the void, the issue about the voids and the reasons, and the uncertainty over whether a 5%, which I think is competent, I think 8, 9, 10 have just been picked out of a hat by the administration. I think we need to. I would propose that we defer the decision to another meeting when we have more information, rather than make a decision, you know, right now. I'm going to put forward a motion to do that, so we can have everything and have a reasoned discussion about having had some answers back definitively. That's my proposal. I'm putting a motion now in the chat.
Fantastic. Would anybody like to second Councillor Edmiston? Councillor Ross, is that?
Yeah, I think I would actually, because I'm a wee bit concerned about the parity over the whole of the Highlands, really. I was doing a little bit of research there, and there is quite a difference in rentals over garages. And I was not aware of that, to be honest, Lindsay. So yeah, I think we need to find out a bit more. But apologies for earlier on. I was being told that somebody's roof was flying off, so I had to go and deal with something. So thank you.
Okay. So, Councillor Edmiston, you have a seconder. Councillor Coghill.
Oh, a thirder.
Thirder.
Sorry.
Okay, well, in that
I
case,
see Brian's joined us. Maybe Brian could help us at the moment, Lindsay.
Yeah. Hello, Brian. Thank you for popping in.
That's okay. I believe you have a question maybe for me. Go ahead.
We do. We're having a bit of a debate about the garage rents. There has been a suggestion that would 5% be a viable rent increase. Is there a reason for it being 8, 9 and 10? That's basically the question.
Okay, and I suppose in terms of the 8, 9 and 10% proposals, that's to reflect what was in the mainstream rent consultation, which went out to all the 15,000 council houses pre-Christmas to do with their mainstream rents. What we've done in previous years, this largely we followed what's been in the mainstream rent consultation with what goes to each area committee in terms of garage rents. I think fundamentally the most important thing to remember is that setting garage rents is not a statutory duty as such. As long as we give garage renters 28 days notice, there's no other kind of statutory duties around it. You don't have a right to have a garage tenancy as such. As hopefully a good landlord, one of our responsibilities is, however, to make sure we have enough funding to be able to fix garages if there's any repair issues and such. So in terms of competency, I would suggest that without the benefit of kind of doing a more detailed analysis, 5% is probably a competent motion as such, if that's the way members are inclined. I would, however, say that it depends on potentially what that might mean in terms of the repairs budget for fixing garages during the year, where effectively the more income we have from garage renters, it gives a bit more freedom to fix garages accordingly. And again, it also means that we don't have to dip into other housing related budgets to pay for that if, for example, there was a spate of emergency repairs needed in garages. So hopefully that helps. It really is a question for members.
Mapping available of where the garages are and where the voids are? One of the things that we're wondering about, if there is long-term voids because we have maybe some poor derelict maybe garages, are they worth being torn down and being parking, or are they worth being torn down and being land availability for new housing?
I would say that from a housing perspective, we're very open to those conversations. I would want them to be had at local meetings with members, yes, because I think you're best placed to provide some of that kind of community input into it as such. We've done it in different areas, different wards over the years. I would say our housing development colleagues have probably visited every garage site in Highland on a number of occasions over the years, and generally speaking, the ones which haven't been redeveloped for housing, there's usually access issues, drainage issues, some type of reason why the garages haven't been knocked down and built on. I think there's definitely conversations that can be had locally in terms of where maybe for whatever reason garages are being left empty, and we have to be upfront about this, members. The garages, when they were built, largely built for in a time when there were smaller cars and built to meet parking demands at that moment in time. We know that as households tend to have more cars have got wider, bigger and stuff like that. There's certainly opportunity to review it, and some of our garages are possibly not particularly attractive to renters in terms of that. I would say they're usually quite attractive in terms of the affordability compared to other rental options. And we also have to be upfront as well. We know a lot of garage renters use the garages for storage as opposed to car parking as such. So I think these are all considerations. I'm wondering maybe if it might be useful, just as a commitment from housing, just to go back to it, maybe a ward business meeting, maybe February time, March time, and just talk over some of these issues with the members directly, particularly when it comes to...
I think that'd be incredibly useful.
Yeah. Okay. I'll certainly get the team working on that and trying to get some type of briefing for members just to give a wee bit more detail to it, because I'm conscious that under the current scheme of delegation, you get the garage report once a year, and I would prefer the conversations to be had during the year as to whether there might be viable options open to some of the sites. It could be, we could be a bit more commercially focused if members were of a mind. It's I think it's definitely open to looking into in more detail. Hopefully that helps, Councillor.
No, it really does. Thank you very, very much indeed. And so 5% would be competent, but it could have impacts for the ability to make repairs.
I would say so, Councillor. Although again, if it's urgent repairs needed to maintain the structure of a repair, we would have to find that money, and it would have to come from a different part of the repairs budget, which might have a knock-on impact there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that, Brian. That's been incredibly helpful. What was I going to say? So the motion that we've got in place is to defer the decision today, but I think, Councillor Edmondson, are you happy that we now have the information that we need?
Well, I have the information that a motion for 5% is competent, but I still think actually it would be useful for us to make a decision, having had these conversations at ward level, and come to the meeting for a decision to be made by every committee after we've been informed of the issues surrounding the voids and perhaps any areas where we can do better with our garages. So I still would like to keep my motion to defer on the schedule. I'm not withdrawing that motion because I think we make a better decision. It might be, having had our ward meetings, that we say, you know what, we'll make it 12% and we'll invest in these areas. So I would rather come from a position of knowledge rather than making a decision today which might not be for the best for who we represent. That's how I feel about it.
Okay. I would like to propose an amendment then that we don't defer. So just the direct negative, and we take a vote today. So can we go to the vote on that first motion?
Do you have a seconder, Lindsay?
Oh, yes, that's quite handy. Do I have a seconder at all?
I can second you.
Thank you.
Chair, can I just clarify first of all with your, so you would have the amendment to not defer, and then are you going to take the amount if you win and then you'll look separately at the actual percentage after that? That's a good plan. Okay, then I'll just go through that note. So we have a motion from Councillor Edmondson to defer this to the next meeting of the committee. So that's seconded by Councillor Ross. And we have an amendment by Councillor Johnson, seconded by Councillor McCallum, not to do that and to just carry on and decide it today between the, I guess, between the percentages that are presented in the report.
That's correct.
And I think Councillor Atkin has left, I think. Are you there, Councillor Atkin? No, she's gone.
No, she said she'd a meeting at 1:30.
She's
so
1:30. So, Councillor Coghill.
Motion, please.
Councillor Collier.
Amendment, please.
Councillor Cross.
Motion, please.
Councillor Dundas.
Amendment.
Councillor Edmondson. Has he frozen? Is he frozen? I'd like to...
He might come back. He might unfreeze. He might thaw
Oh,
a little
there
bit.
he is. Councillor Edmondson, I presume you're voting
on
for your own
mute.
motion.
I think you're on.
Motion, yeah, I was on mute.
Councillor Johnson.
Amendment, please.
Councillor McCallum.
Amendment, please.
Councillor Ramsey.
Motion, please.
And Councillor Ross.
Motion, please.
Okay, so I have 5 votes for the motion and 4 votes for the amendment, so it's deferred till the next meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so I think it's the last item to note really is the ward discretionary budgets from this year so far. So are we happy to note the details of the ward discretionary budgets? Okay. And we're happy to note that the minutes have been circulated at the end. Fantastic. Right, well, thank you all for your time and your attendance today, and hope you get to have a little bit of time off after that marathon. So thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.